to the AML Summit 2024. It's an absolute privilege to have you here. We originally had the idea to do this summit. We wanted a space for collaboration and conversation about AML, and to create a space where you make tangible progress in your AML compliance just in a few hours over 3 days. We had an awesome response, and we are so excited to share with you this awesome lineup that we have. Today, we're starting off with Kevin Lord, the General Manager of Firmcheck. He'll be presenting the AML maturity model and research report that Firmcheck just announced today. It is very insightful. We spent a lot of time on it. We're very proud of it. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think and where you place yourselves on the maturity model. We follow with Glenn Collins of the ACCA, talking about why AML is important. Then we have Alex Falcon with a fireside chat with Kev on what she does in her firm regarding AML. And then we have the Dumbledore of AML, David Winch. He is so knowledgeable about AML. He'll be presenting and talking about the people and policies of AML and what you need to do to set up your firm on those to support your AML compliance. And then I think this is going to be one of my most favorite sessions. He'll be doing a workshop on how to write a risk assessment. How do you write a risk assessment? Exactly. So David will present on that. So those sessions I'm very excited about, but overall this day is going to be awesome. So to kick it off, I'm going to invite Kevin Lord to the stage to do a presentation on the AML maturity model. Hi, Kevin.
Morning, Sophie. If David's the Dumbledore of AML, like, does that make me Hagrid, like the overweight Scottish accent kind of guy?
Yeah. Or who's that Simpsons character that's Scottish?
Groundskeeper Willie. Oh, well,
Groundskeeper Willie. Yeah.
Is that better or worse? I don't know.
It's just who you are. No, I only joke. As you can all see as well, I apologize. I overlooked. In the handout section that's just popped up on the right-hand side of the screen is the AML Summit workbook. We created a workbook over the next 3 days where you can make notes on what you've learned. The end of day parts of what you of the actions that you want to take, make notes. On the 3rd day, we'll cover actually putting them into a project plan. It's all the speakers have submitted different pages relevant to their talks. So this is a really great resource just to keep track of all you learned. So when you walk away, you've got a whole thing together of what you learned and what you want to put into place. I believe that's it. I'm going to give you the stage, Kevin, and leave you to talk about this maturity model.
Cool, thank you very much, and a big congratulations to Sophie and Nathan and the guys behind the scenes of creating today. Like I say, we're really excited, we're really proud of it, and yeah, we just want this to be a source of inspiration to our partners, potential partners, but also the industry there. People are really happy about your comparison to Groundskeeper Willie, Sophie. So I'll try and tone down my accent a little bit and not do it. So I'm going to share the screen. Sophie might drop off and sit in the background, and hopefully I can humour you and enlighten you of the inspiration really of what we're trying to achieve here at Firmcheck and how we are trying to really support the industry in an area that causes a lot of emotion, a lot of fear, guilt, sort of shame, confusion, and just try and point you in the right direction. So this morning, part of the AML Summit is that we are launching the AML Maturity Framework, and the next 25 minutes or so is just a high-level summary of what that is. And then we will share with you towards the end of the presentation where you can actually get the research documentation and framework that I'm about to present to you, which is good. Before I start, and I'm going to run a little poll here in the background, but I want to ask you all a question. And since we launched in September, I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of practices, and we've got AML experts throughout the summit who have given us feedback and their experiences as well. But I just want to kind of ask you on a scale of 1 to 5, how you would rate your firm's current AML processes, 1 being the poorest and 5 being excellent. And you should have that poll on your screen just now. I have 1 person that's answered it, so you know, I can definitely see that you're doing it. And I'll let that run for a couple of seconds there, and yeah, no judgment here at all. I'll just let it run till we get to almost 75%. Nice positive audience this morning. That's what I like to see. Come on, we're at 65%. We need another couple of people to answer that, and then we'll get going there. Okay, that's great. So looking at the answers, you know, and I'm not surprised really. You know, I would say majority of well, let's just say 23% say 4, 2% say 5. So a quarter of the audience today think it's, you know, either good or very good, and everyone else thinks it's kind of average or below. I just want to ask a quick follow-up question to that now, and just put your comments in the chat box. We're really keen to get your comments in the chat box. Like Sophie said, we've got David Winch on the sessions today. We've got Glenn from ACCA. Lucy is doing a Q&A at the end of the day as well. So we really want to kind of bombard them with really sort of direct questions about that. But can I ask you why you did not pick a lower number there? So all the people that are sort of like 3, 4, 5, even 2, what was it that made you sort of confident that actually you're doing all right? And just pop that in the chat box and why you think, you know, that you're at the level that you think you are, and that's great. And we can use these questions, we can use these inputs from you to direct questions there, Margaret. After chatting to you, how very kind. I know exactly who you are, Margaret, so thank you very much. Claire's passed an AML inspection, fantastic. So keep them coming, and again, I'm aware of time. I love the sound of my own voice, so I'll be very careful not to run over. Excellent. People passing inspections, that kind of thing as well. Okay, so just before I dig into the actual AML maturity model, again, I just want to give you some high level sort of data of where we got that and why I'm sort of asking you where you are in terms of scoring yourself. So some interesting data that came on. Sarah, still new, not confident exactly. Derek, we're very careful who we take on. Yep, that's right. And, you know, I hear that quite a lot. 1 in 3 practices do not have risk assessments in place. So, you know, that's quite concerning, if you like. And the ICAW certainly say that, you know, their #1 finding for the last 5 years is the risk assessments and the continuous risk assessments in place. So, you know, just about a third of practices do not have standard risk assessments in place, or they don't have a firm-wide assessment in place. So if you're one of the sort of 60%, then well done you. But there's a real high number of practices out there that don't have anything. Now, like I said there, I think one of the things that I'm certainly seeing when we talk to practices is this idea of continuous reviews, and not just the annual reviews of the clients, but actually the annual reviews of their internal processes. I'll give you an example. I'm currently dealing with a practice that is using the same risk assessment questions that they've used in the early 2000s. And life has kind of changed from there. And one of their questions is, you know, is this client, do they live within a 10-mile radius of the practice? But life changed since then. You know, is that actually a relevant question to ask? So those kind of things are important. The second point here, firms are 3.2, very accurate there, times more likely to carry out more regular reviews if they've adopted technology for AML compliance. So again, there's a lot of firms out there that aren't using technology. They're taking photocopies of identification. Perhaps they are doing risk assessments on pen and paper. Again, that firm that I'm talking about is pen and paper sort of risk assessments there. And then the final point here is technology is more likely to support better AML risk management. And again, this is about managing this process. It's not about doing the process, but it's making it much more systematic for you of doing that as well. So some interesting data points there. Now, going to the AML maturity framework itself, you know, what we are looking to do here is not give you, you know, not say, hey, use Firmcheck and you're automatically compliant. It's not as easy as that. And I'll share a quote from David Winch later, that every practice is unique. They all have they all have unique processes in place. You all deal with your clients different. You all have different risk appetites. But what we want to try and do is give you a structure that you can easily assess the level of AML competence across 3 pillars. That's the people, internally and externally, the processes that you're doing, and the technology you're using. But also what we want to do is give you a clear pathway and clear tips and guidance on how you can become more competent and take advantage of this process there as well. Again, just a bit of sort of methodology, if you like, in terms of the maturity framework and how we go about that. So again, just going through exactly what I said there, you know, the people that relates to the individuals actually doing the AML compliance work, managing the obligations in the firm. We know that there's capacity issues in the accounting world, and certainly in the UK at the minute. I've worked in the accounting software for many years, and that capacity issue is always there. So how do we enhance that experience internally for you and your staff and make that easier? Then we look at the processes and the policy and processes that the firm has in place to make sure that they're meeting their obligations, and you know that the whole firm follows this consistently and regularly, and making sure they're up to date. And then the final part is, what technology do you use? You know, there's no point in technology if it's not going to save you time, but also, you know, rubbish in, rubbish out, that kind of thing. We need to make sure that the technology works for you as well, and make sure that what you are using is making you as efficient and giving you the right data as possible. And before I highlight stage, you know, the Dumbledore of AML, I'm not quite sure how he'll react to that, but you know, we love working with David. He's a real source of inspiration, if anything. Here, just David's sort of forward about that. You know, we shared the maturity model with him, as well as other consultants and other industry bodies. But you know, just to pat ourselves on the back a little bit, but you know, what we're really trying to do is we're not saying that firms don't do this. We're just probably saying they're not doing it consistently or as efficiently as possible. So it's really good to get some backing from people in the industry that you know, support what we're doing and can see that we're trying to do things for the same reason. Okay, so let's introduce the stages of AML maturity to you. And again, this is just a brief overview. I think I've got 17 minutes left, so I better watch my time here a little bit. I'll introduce each stage to you, and then a little bit more information of what each stage actually is. So stage number 1 of the maturity model is undefined. So level 1, undefined. AML compliance is kind of an afterthought. There's nothing really formally in place to demonstrate AML compliance within the practice. And you know, I'm going to be quite generic here, if you don't mind, and I know this is a sweeping statement. I'm going to suggest that the people on this call are probably not in this level because you're on the call, so you're aware of it. It's not an afterthought. You know, you're at least aware of it. But believe me, we have spoken to tens, you know, of firms who are actually in this level. They have nothing. They've been audited, and you know, the auditors have came in and said, you need to get yourself in shape here. There's no documentation, there's no risk assessments, that kind of thing. The attitude of these people are usually, yeah, but I know my clients. You know, these guys have been my clients for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever that is. And you know, they think that's enough. So although I'm not suggesting and pointing the finger at anyone in this call is in this level, as an afterthought, they are out there. It could be someone that's new in building their practice. Likewise, it could be someone that's been an accountant for, like, say, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and a local accountant, perhaps someone doing it part-time and not realizing that actually they have to do those obligations. So that's level number 1, undefined. Level number 2, limited, and vast majority of people on the call kind of scored themselves number 2. AML compliance is kind of ad hoc. They know it has to be done. There is an awareness that AML needs to be completed, and their annual obligations are there, but they're not quite sure how they're doing it. Might live on different systems. Some of it might be paper-based. Some of it might be on Excel. You might use a system for one thing, another. And it's maybe not doing the right thing. So, you're still needing some work to meet the compliance requirements. You don't need to do everything, but, what you are doing is probably not ticking all the boxes. And again, I'll go into more details of what these are. Level 3, your content. AML is understood. You're being enough to meet your legal requirements. That's great, but it's probably really time consuming. It's a drain. You're not confident. Things could be everywhere, and that level. And I want to say the vast majority of people live in these 2 levels, level 2 or level 3. So they think they're doing enough, but not quite, or they're struggling to do enough, or they are just scraping by. And by just scraping by, it's a lot of pain, it's a lot of anguish, it's a lot of fear, it's a lot of anxiety as well. And these are quite emotive things that I'm talking about, but that's exactly the experiences that I'm hearing from people out there. So I really feel that the vast majority of UK accountants are in these two levels there. Then we go, okay, so how do we make this better? So level 4, systematic. So yep, AML is a core part of understanding your clients. You're not just treating this as a tick box exercise at year end or on the onboarding process, but actually you've got really strong systematic processes in place. It's well understood both internally and externally. Everything is kind of documented. You're probably going slightly above your requirements. You're not just looking to just, like, say, tick a box, but you're going above that. Everything is organized and in one place. And I would say very few people are on this level. But that's where we all want to get to, whether that's using Firmcheck or another software. That's where we want to be. We want to systemize all that and get it into one place. And then the final level is excelling, and I'll go into this in more detail. It's a core component of your firm's operations, and actually you're using AML to perhaps offer different services and really understanding your clients and being able to direct them, and you're going well above and beyond your AML requirements. So that is the 5 stages of our AML maturity model. We will, I'll go into each stage in a little bit more detail just now, and then we'll share the actual research document with you at the end. Okay, so level 1, undefined. And again, I'm probably just reviewing everything that I've just said. Like I said, I like the sound of my own voice there. I can see the chat box is really lighting up, so that's great. Keep them coming. We'll collate it all and make sure that it shapes our Q&A sessions with the experts throughout the day. So level 1, undefined. What do we mean with that? So some firms have an awareness that they need to do something, but they don't really have much plans with there. They might have an MLRO, but there's limited steps there, and there's not a lot of accountability within the practice. There's a low level of understanding concerning their compliance obligations, and really, if they were to be audited tomorrow, they would probably have a lot of actions after that audit. There's a high level of risk on these firms because there's non-existent AML processes, and ultimately there's a high level of fines or losing your practice license there as well. So if you're one of the people that find yourself in this level, and again, I do talk to these kind of firms, what can we do to sort of get started? First of all, you need to create a process, and and David's session will be a little bit about that. I'm doing create an AML process on Thursday. So how do you create a process? You should start to develop and formalize and document your process for AML compliance. I think you need to be more active. You can see if you go into Accounting Web, for example, and see some of the comments there whenever David puts an article up, or we put an article up, or anyone puts an article. There's a lot of negativity about AML, which I understand. It's not a fee-earning task, but the reality is they are your obligations. So you need to be more active there. Ensure that your MLRO is someone appropriate and senior in the firm who can take accountability and who can drive that in the practice. And you need to understand what to do. So the fact that you're on this call and on the summit, I think, shows great strides. But you need to know what it is that your accounting body or HMRC are really going to be looking for when they come at you. And it's no use guessing, but you do have to try and do that. And I can see Jill's comment there. HMRC is her supervisor. She hasn't seen any templates or anything detailed. Then hopefully you'll find this morning quite helpful for you there as well. But like I say, Jill, the fact that you're here, you're probably way ahead on your journey. Okay, level number 2, limited, and I would argue that most firms are in this place. AML's compliance is ad hoc, it's a bit disorganized, that there's awareness of what needs to be done, but not maybe what makes them compliant. Some work is being done, but not at all. And I'll give you an example of people using monitoring or ID verification, and that's it. They're probably doing some of it. They think that, yes, they're using a monitoring tool and that therefore they're doing full AML on their clients, when in actual fact they're not doing the risk assessments, they're not doing the other KYC elements of that business. So firms are doing what they can to tick some AML boxes, but because they don't understand the full compliance, they're likely not to be compliant in some areas. And again, I think this is the vast majority of firms. They might be using different systems. Different teams in the business may be responsible for different parts of the process, but again, it's not being aligned. So like say, you might have an onboarding team or an AML team that just does the ID and does the monitoring, does the PEP and sanctions, and the accountants or the people that do the customer facing thing does the risk assessments, which is fine, but the whole process is not joined together, it's not aligned, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think a lot of the firms are in this area. So how do we get out of level 2 and onto level 3? You need to start moving towards compliance. So yes, you might be ticking some of the boxes, but not all. So you need a consistent AML process for new and existing clients, which includes documented risk assessments. It includes due diligence. It includes things that are beyond just checking and verifying ID. I think you need to upskill all your staff. Again, it might be someone's role to deal with the ID on onboarding, and they think that's the AML part. Actually, it's the whole picture, like I say. And then you need to consider how technology might help you consolidate that into one place, as opposed to doing things by requesting data via email or storing documentations in a Google Drive or even paper-based things. So start considering that. God, I've got 7 minutes, I better run. Level 3, content, AML is understood and you're doing enough to meet the requirements. So again, I'll try and fight through this quite quickly. You know what the requirements are. You're doing enough to tick the boxes. You can see here at the bottom, you're ticking the sort of 6 fundamental elements of that. You've got a firm-wide risk assessment. You've got policies in place. You're training your staff. Your ID is verified, you've got AML risk assessments for each client, and there's an annual system to review that. So you're kind of ticking the boxes there. But how do we go ahead of that now? And again, I think most firms are in 2 or 3. Ensure all your staff are understanding this, but then the next part is really starting to implement technology. So although you're compliant, it is a pain in the backside job to do. Things live everywhere. The attitude of firms that I hear is AML is a pain, it's a time drain, that kind of thing. So although you're competent, it's a task that you really don't need to do. So you can enhance that further by really building the systems and building the technology in place there. Level 4, systematic, and again, just building on that, you're doing more than enough to be AML compliant. There is a clear, competent AML focus in the firm. there is a deeper understanding of why you're doing it. So it's not this negative sort of Nelly thing. You know why you're doing AML. You've got a system in place, and you're happy with that. And you've implemented the software. Again, how do we get to level 5 now, which is excelling, building stronger foundations there. So you can then start to search for new ways to extract additional value from your AML. Can you start really diving into the understanding of your clients there? Ensure all your relevant staff are well versed in your firm policies. Are you now developing future MLROs, for example? And consider implementing a compliance team or a dedicated compliance officer if your size of firm warrants it as well. So, this is all about you're doing a great job, but how can you future-proof this? How can you take advantage now of AML, if that makes sense? And then level 5, it's a core component of your operations. It adds value to new and ongoing relationships. So you're totally exceeding your requirements. You're being proactive. AML is a daily ongoing task that you complete. It is the fundamental utopia of what you do, that you're diving into client transactions. You're noticing, hey, that's a foreign currency transaction that I didn't know about. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Well, actually, yes, it does make sense. I'm going to record that in my AML software. But not only that, hey, I can go and find foreign exchange software for these clients, or I can point them in the right direction of that kind of thing. So you can continue to provide ongoing training to your staff, not just on what AML is, but how you can take advantage of it as a practice as well. You're ensuring that you're constantly updating and assessing your risk assessments. Again, I said that at the start, I'm dealing with a firm just now whose risk assessments are 20 years old, and the questions don't really make sense anymore. But you're also leveraging smart technologies to create an integrated AML process, but an enhanced service for your clients there as well. I've seen lots of people there saying using the framework. So again, whilst we know technology adoption is an indicator of better processes, this framework isn't necessarily a linear process of improvement. We want you to kind of use this framework to reflect and evaluate your own processes and where you can find sort of bottlenecks and improvements. We're not asking everyone to reach level 5 either. We have to be clear there. Level 5 might not suit your size of firm. You might not want to do that. You might not want to offer different services that the AML knowledge could give you. But really, we want to try and get everyone up to level 3, as do all the experts, as do all the consultants, as do all the accounting bodies there. So reaching level 3 might be enough for you and for your firm, and that's absolutely fine. What we don't want you to do is slip into level 1 and 2, where you think you're compliant, but you're not quite. I also want to highlight that this isn't just us asking you to do everything here and what the maturity model should inspire you. But since we've done all this research and since we've collated all the data, it's actually inspired us internally. And, we will be using the AML maturity framework to actually shape our product roadmap as well, to try and create the features and tools that we will need to give someone at, say, level 1. How do they get up to level 2, level 3, that kind of thing. And then likewise, hey, you've got a great system in place. How do we get you up to the excelling and showing you more value in that? So not only am I asking you guys to use the maturity model to evaluate your own processes and your own sort of service, we're doing the same internally, and our roadmap's really going to be inspired by our AML maturity model there as well. So again, in summary, I've got 2 minutes left. The 5 stages. Now that I've went through it and I've spoke at unbelievable speed in my Scottish accent, you may have not understood it. I'm not going to run a poll this time, although do I have a poll? I might have a poll. If I asked you to rescore yourself, or did you score yourself differently now that I've been through that compared to the first time? I think that's the second poll that I have. So, like I say, more people we're fairly sure that they're compliant and not. And kind of what we're asking is do you now score yourself differently? Can you see yourself that, yeah, actually, I think I'm okay, but I'm not ticking the boxes, or I thought I was really, really in control of this, but you're right, all the documentation or everything is a bit all over the place. So We'll just let that run. I'm aware of time, so I'll try and finish off. What now? So the AML maturity framework is now live. I've seen Sophie trying to share some of it in the chat box as we go ahead. I think we've got an advert there that's just popped up on the screen to download your free copy of the maturity model and the research behind that. So on you go. God, look at all these clicks happening. Oh, we'll be so happy in the background to work through all that data. And then finally, about Firmcheck, you'll get the opportunity to book a call in with myself, to go through the maturity model and discuss where you are in terms of processes. There is no obligation to sign up to the software or anything like that. I'm more than happy to have the chat. You'll be amazed how much value it is to us so that we can really hear your pain points. Likewise, we can do full demo of the software and show you where we can help as well. We are getting a little note from some people saying download will not work. So let us look into that and come back. So that's, yeah, a few people are struggling. So let us fix that sort of technology thing behind the screen. I am going to stop sharing now. That's all I've got to talk about in terms of the AML maturity model. I hope you found that as exciting as I do. I love tech, and I love I've worked in accountancy software for many years, and so is our next guest. So I want to tap into that. I think I've got a passion about just making sure that you guys are not as stressed out, not as busy as that everyone clearly is, and actually you want to give the service and support your clients as much as you possibly can. So I'm really big on that. Okay, I think some people are saying that the download's fine. Some people are saying that it works. Some people aren't. So we'll kind of sort that out. Okay, great. There's 350 people online just now, which is fantastic. I am due to meet our next guest, which will hopefully be Glenn. Here he comes. Good morning, Glenn. I can hear you clicking away there.
You can hear me clicking away, can you? That's always a good sign to hear, isn't it? Thank you, Kevin, for that.
Excellent.
Really good presentation, really great summary. Thank you.
Well, I'll let you introduce yourself as well, Glenn, but then I'll pick your brains on that. But for anyone on the call, or, there's 300 and, I know of you because I've been stalking you for a while. But for other people that don't know who you are, Glenn, give us a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. Well, I have the privilege of working for ACCA, and I'm head of technical and strategic engagement at ACCA. I am an ACCA accountant, just so for clarity and for completeness. And I spent 16 years in public practice. I joined ACCA back in 1999. And I engage a lot with government, with partners, an awful lot of member support coming through. Important for us that at ACCA, we have a separate monitoring department and separate legal departments. My area is really lovely in that I get to provide support, assistance across to all of our members, but especially our SMPs. And we know some of those real challenges. And you mentioned some of that earlier about some of the time challenges people face. So I have the privilege of also working on that area as well as some of my other work.
Yeah. So, the time challenges, if I could just sort of dive into that quickly, if you don't mind. And I don't want to say former career, but before I joined Firmcheck, I was the head of the accounting channel at Free Agent, and we were very much at the forefront of like the MTD changes, making tax digital, and even before that, you've got the self-assessment and RTI payroll and things like that. Time is such a commodity, isn't it? And it's such a sort of where are accountants finding this time, and will this ever end?
I think it is. I think it's always a real challenge in finding that appropriate time in putting in those resources and extra resources you need. And we know from a lot of the AML work and some of the feedback from the monitoring team when they come across to us, actually people know what they should be doing, know some of the requirements, but actually it's that extra bit of time to document some of it down, document your thought process down, because we all know you make decisions at a particular point in time. It may be imperfect information, but it is the information you've actually undertaken and you've judged at that particular time to be appropriate. You highlighted earlier that very important area. You've got something, a transaction comes in foreign currency. Actually, what does that actually mean? Now, yeah, totally legitimate for 99.99% of businesses, but then there's that other element where it isn't. And if you can get into the habit of doing that, you're actually using that to run your business, provide advice across to your clients, and also actually help them spot something which could be potentially somebody doing something wrong at their end, because it's not always the business owner who'll be running and undertaking all of those transactions coming through. So I think that's the importance of use your time effectively. Don't put off and don't say, oh, I'm going to put off that documentation coming through. Do it as you've gone through that process. And it doesn't matter whether it's a couple of lines, a couple of notes. It actually shows you thought of that area. Actually, you've taken action on that particular area. And that's something we all know and we all do, and we all have great intentions to do, but actually we all find something else of interest. I'd say to everyone on the call, perhaps even just document a few things down while you're waiting on the phone line for HMRC to answer. You'll have enough time there to actually write a complete AML process and procedure manual through.
Well, I'm sure our team behind the scenes will thank you for that comment, because usually when you mention that, the chat box just explodes with HMRC complaints. So thanks very much. Oh, I've just lost it. So thanks very much. If I can just dip into something that you said there and probably educate some people on here. You mentioned, just document your internal thoughts and things like that. And again, when I speak to the accounting bodies, when I speak to accountants, it's because they've not done the process sort of in small chunks. What's the best way to eat an elephant? You do it in, chunks. This AML becomes a huge mountainous task, and then it becomes like a weight on the shoulders. But to your point, just a little sentence here and there, as if the ACCA auditors come into the practice, shows that there's just an underlying thought process going in place. And usually that's all it takes. We're not expecting a forensic evaluation of every single client. It is just that ongoing commitment and ongoing mindset that, hey, we're kind of diving a little bit deeper into every interaction that we have, isn't it? So is that the kind of expectations that the ACCA set, or awareness that actually, we're not expecting war and peace here. We're just expecting little bits of every client here and there to show that you're thinking about this?
Well, I'd say it's on two particular areas. It is around that risk assessment and firm-wide risk assessment. So actually start off and make your life as easy as possible, because you don't have to have that same approach as you've highlighted through, and as everyone on the call will know, across for all those clients, because many of them will be extremely low risk. So actually do that firm-wide risk assessment, categorize some of those clients coming through, and then actually you've got that starting point, as you say, you've broken something up into that, and then actually look what's current. Earlier on, last year, we highlighted through some of the Russian sanctions, and actually what will our regulator be looking at? They'll be looking at, have we informed our members about Russian sanctions? Are they aware of that? Are they looking at that? And naturally, they're going to look at that monitoring process. So when we're regulated, that's what they're going to be focusing on. So naturally, we want to tell our members about, look, concentrate on this area. This is an area we know will be of focus. So you actually act in that respect, and you look at those and go, have I got anything of risk? Have I got some of those high risk clients? Are they in certain jurisdictions? Actually, for my clients, are they actually also trading in areas where there are elements of high risk? And that's an additional point, because you come back and you go, actually, I can use some of this information and knowledge to help my work with my clients and help my advisory work with my clients.
Yeah.
But don't treat AML as almost like that separate box in the corner that I only have to open when a regulator comes in and asks. Actually use it as an active tool, and do look at it and say, right, there will be snippets I can pull out where I can advise clients. And I know, quite a few of our members would be looking at multi-jurisdictional businesses and going, actually, there's a real supply chain risk over here, be it in India or be it elsewhere, because of the connections they've got going through to Russia. Now, you might well want to say to the client, what have you got on that mitigation and on that supply chain route going through for that? That moves into business advice, but you're using some of your AML knowledge and AML information you've got to actually supplement that. So that's what I'd say to people, to use some of it. Don't treat it as that separate box.
I mean, music to my ears, that. So, yeah, brilliant. I also, one of my roles at Free Agent has been the technical engagement and person. So you're speaking my language massively. What other ways did the ACCA support their members? You kind of said sharing, the things about Russia and things like that. Is there any other avenues or things that the ACCA think, hey, this has worked really, really well with members that were perhaps in a tricky situation?
I think it does come down, as you say, tricky situations are always hard, and that does resolve around and comes back to almost that one-off advice and support. So where people have problems, actually there are peer groups, there are firms you can reach out to. There's also, I run a technical advisory team. They will also actually support members going through that basis. For the other support, we're looking at actually pro formas around some of those areas for firm-wide assessments, some of that other information, and actually, so you've got a starting point, and you can actually start to pull something together. Because we all know, going back to the time comment earlier, it is really, really difficult and really challenging when you're faced with that blank sheet of paper. It is much easier to go through, to actually alter something and tailor it to your own needs. So we've done that, and I'm really pleased to hear, you've got that type of area and that type of support coming through as well, which is really invaluable for an awful lot of firms. So that's on those aspects. And then all of the variety of different bits of information, and wherever you consume that, we have a particular magazine we produce called In Practice. Every second month that will have at least something on AML or a tip or something to get you thinking around those areas. And it could be, as we said, around the sanctions areas, could be something else. So set up your news feeds to make life easier for you on that. And wherever you consume it, be it accounting web, be it via you and your firm, your business, or via ACCA and others, actually just set those up and just say, right, I've got that. How am I going to distribute that amongst the firm? What do I do to make it real to people as well? That it isn't a compliance burden, that actually this is what's happening out there and the real business. Because when we look at it, we're all here about looking and keeping financial networks rolling. And, this is some of the purpose, as you'll know, of AML is actually those financial networks around access to finance, is actually protecting our profession, which I think is really, really important for the accountancy profession, because we're the most trusted professionals out there. People turn to us, people rely on us, and actually the profession as a whole, we all sign up to that profession as a whole. And then actually individually for your own business, actually protecting your own business, because there's nothing more damaging than actually making some of those mistakes or errors and actually being caught out and being looking at something and going, how on earth was I duped into that particular set of circumstances? And we hear some tragic tales from people where they've actually been duped, and they're looking, going, how on earth did I end up in that particular route or that particular area? So actually, there's that wider piece where we come in around all of those areas.
You touched on 2 points there, and there was a couple of comments in the chat which I'll try and relate to then. And granted, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I actually want to build on the positivity of, if you treat AML as an ongoing thing, then it really. I'm not saying accountants don't know their customers, but do they understand their customers? And that's two sort of separate things. Like, I'm not suggesting that, hey, Mary down the road's been your client for 25 years, but what is it that Mary actually does, and how can you enhance that? But you clicked on a couple of things. Now, someone said that, in the chat, and I'll try and get the figure, and I'm sure that the figures based on experience, but all this compliance, all this sort of work, if you want to do it like that, is seen as a burden because it's not done daily. All to try and catch the 0.01% of money launderers that come through practices. It feels like, the chance of this happening and the chance of the accountant spotting this is probably fairly low, if you want to do that. But then I'll bring this back to your other point. Is I done a research document a few years ago, and accountancy practices were the second most trusted industry in the UK behind doctors. And reputation means so much in this industry, because again, where you're saying you're protecting the industry, if I can be blunt, everyone, technology, digitization of whatever, adverts of certain bookkeeping tools kind of suggest that software can do accounting work for you. Whether you agree with that or not is a different argument. But what people really value, what small businesses really value, is that trust, that support, that advisory services that you're talking about. So what impact is not concentrating on that 99.99% and the reputational damage that could cause a practice? And have you got any experience of that with the ACCA? My example would be, you very rarely see accounting web articles or ACCA articles about an accountant made a mistake here or there, but you do see a lot of, hey, that's a dodgy accountant, and it's that kind of reputation that you don't want, isn't it?
I think it's, as you say, it's that type of reputation, but let's not forget, actually, that activity and the criminal activity goes across a wide range of different areas. And we are seeing at the moment enormous increases in cyber attacks and cyber references. They can come through weakest links as well. And actually, they also need places to put their money and actually get through that. So there are a number of different higher risk businesses. I mean, we've you will see a lot of those comments and in papers and reports with many cases. I've got several here about different hotels and restaurants and the like. But perhaps just where it came home to me was probably almost at the beginning of some of it back in 2001, when some of those early regulations came through, and we had a particular case, and I dealt with a particular practitioner who had actually reached the end of his process, and was actually totally in despair. He was being threatened. His family was being threatened if he spoke to the police about some of his actions. I mean, he did this on a no-names basis because he knew the fact that under those circumstances which he explained, you'd have to inform the police and others. But he did it on an absolute no-names basis, and we no trace of him at all. But actually, he dealt with a cash business, and it had been a couple he'd been engaged with for an awful long time. They had a couple of silent shareholders. He hadn't bothered with them. he just kind of left them to one side. And one of those silent shareholders was then the one who started to put pressure on. It turned out that person was a really significant drug dealer and was actually using that very small business. It was actually a restaurant business. It made good money. All the margins and everything added up. He was really, satisfied with it, but hadn't gone in and checked and seen who those silent shareholders were. He actually, under those types of threat, he said, I know now I'm going to lose my business. I have potential for jail sentence because I'm going to be tied up in this. I'm going to lose, some of my clients. The bank will probably end up foreclosing on my particular practice coming through. And he said, and which is something which I think we'd all resonate with. He said, I've been too helpful. I've been too trusting. If I'd had the ability to turn that clock back, I'd have asked a few more searching questions. And yeah, if I'm honest with myself, I did have some doubts about why do I never see these other two people? Why are they not engaged in that business? I don't know anything about them. What are those circumstances? And he said, he should have done far more. And he ultimately ended up, he said, I know I'm going to lose my business. I know I'm going to effectively lose my house through some of the action, because the bank will actually foreclose on some of my loans. My clients will go elsewhere. So even for that very, very small percentage, to avoid something like that has to be worthwhile going down a particular route and putting in a particular process for your own protection. If only you're doing it for that, and you ignore those other areas which we've mentioned about the entire profession, about actually financial integrity going through. So that was to me a very it was a heartfelt and really honest discussion that person had. We spent won't come as any shock to you, but it was 3 hours we actually spent on the phone together, talking about some of those issues and actually what he could do going forward in the future.
Oh, you've just thrown in that last line, and it's going to take me off on a tangent.
Okay, sorry.
Let's do that then. What could he have done in the future?
What
was that advice that you gave?
This was more around what he would need to do to sort out his entire, process. So this was more around how could he put all of his finances and everything else into proper shape. So it wasn't so much concentrating on the AML. If we're looking in hindsight, what could he have done? Actually, he acknowledged even back then there was, some of that KYC. If he'd known his client, he would have had doubts. If he'd looked and he'd compare the margins, he'd say, absolutely, if I'm honest, they were probably too good to be true. It was a business I thought was really successful and did really well. They stacked up across the board, but they never really had a downturn. They never really, showed masses of fluctuations, unlike some of his other clients. So yeah, he would have used some of that data and some of that knowledge elsewhere and actually looking at that.
And it's also not getting, and this is very easy for me to say, but worked in practice, so you'll kind of understand this. But it's not treating every task as a transactional task or as a tick box. And I know the industry still works in sort of timesheet sort of mentality, but you have to sort of look beyond just balancing the books and the numbers, but beyond the numbers a little bit. And Paul kind of mentioned this on the chat, and I'm going to challenge Paul a little bit on this. If he wanted to catch AML, he would have joined the police, and which I understand that sentiment totally. But in your example there, these criminals, if you like, they don't care about the collateral damage, and that's what you are.
No.
And you need to protect your own business. And we done a webinar with David Winch and I got Dr. Nick, who was actually based in New Zealand, the English guy in New Zealand who worked for the AML fraud department in New Zealand police force. And interestingly, you know, kind of what you were saying there is the person that's going to be the AML committer or the fraud committer in your practice, the high chance of them is going to be that client that's been your client for 10, 20 years, because they know your processes. They know you're not going to ask the challenging questions. And that's where they can thrive. So, yeah, I think it's about, and we've only got 5 minutes left, so I kind of want to end this on a positivity, but it's kind of the labeling of this task is AML is probably the part that puts people off, isn't it? And actually, it's just about documenting that you are taking a step back and really, really focusing. So probably the labeling of it, AML or, you know, fraud or whatever is doing it a bit of a disservice.
I would totally agree with that. I mean, I come back to the fact of, if you use information you've got and any risk information you've got on your clients for whatever they're doing, i.e., are they going to run out of cash, whatever else, actually that is part of what we do. We look, we say, where are some of those opportunities for that client? How can I help clients mitigate some of those risks? Actually, the AML process is another one of those areas where you can gather in a bit more information. So I turn around and say, treat it as that entire client knowledge that you gather in. Don't treat it as that separate task. When you're looking through and you're going with a client, you're looking at a whole wide range of different areas, so you can give them that good advice going through. And that's where we know, you know, value is created. That's where we know clients really value that information and knowledge. So I'd use this and say, okay, this is where we gather that information in and where we use it. So the example I gave earlier around the, you know, supply chain issues, and actually how some of that could be frozen or stopped or altered by some of that coming through for some of your clients. Your clients would be going, right, okay, now what do we want to do? What processes do we need to put in place? Actually, how do we mitigate against that? Or actually, is it an acceptable risk, but we're entering into it under an acceptable risk? So use AML as that bit of information to help support that advisory work with your clients. Don't treat it as something separate, something standalone. As we said, going back, don't let it sit in that box in the corner, never to be looked at again.
And really poor of me, because I think at the end of this is all about the service that you give to your client. So let's focus on the clients for the last sort of 90 seconds. And a good question came in from VJ there as well. I think AML should be something that you discuss with your clients as well, and let them understand that, listen, you are protecting your business as an accountant as well as their business as well. And he asked the question, you know, is sending an engagement letter with an AML clause tipping them off? I would probably argue no. And if you get pushback from that client, then that's the first alarm bell. If you've got nothing to hide, you know, you should be signing up to that. And you know, so should you involve your clients in this sort of AML process?
I mean, I would always turn around and go, you actually tell them while you're doing something. So tell them that actually we have legislation in the UK. Actually, this is legislation that I need to do. I have to, as an accountant or as a bookkeeper, I have to be regulated with someone for AML. It sits under UK parliamentary law, full stop. You know, therefore, I'm going to be asking you some questions on that, and I'm going to be asking you for some additional information. Any other accountant or bookkeeper is also going to be asking you for information. If they're not, then they're probably teetering on the fact that they're potentially breaking the law in some way. So I'd be honest and open with some of them. And regarding the engagement letter, no, definitely no form of tipping off by having anything within an engagement letter on that particular front. Just provide some additional information in terms of that contract And we and others have had different clauses in engagement letters for years.
Yeah, I agree. Any new service and someone gives me that, I'm kind of like,
yeah,
this guy knows what he's doing, or this dude knows what he's doing, or this practice. Glenn, I could talk to you all morning, and I know you've been online for an hour, so I want to give you the final minute to I don't want to say sell yourself, but direct people into any resources that the ACCA might have or upcoming things. Final minute is all yours, if you want to do that. But on you go.
Sure, I'll keep it very short and sweet. It's actually I'd come back and saying use the resources, use all the resources available. As we said earlier, however you consume things, if you consume things for ACCA, thank you very much. We're very grateful. We do have things from in practice and other areas. We do have a lot of that guidance, but actually wherever you consume that through, make sure you've actually got that down as a regular fee coming through. Make your life as easy as possible is the message I want to give out to all of our practitioners. So don't go back to your earlier point. Don't treat this as a standalone burden. Go and make it as easy and as simple to access as possible. And lovely to see you, Kevin.
Thank you, Glenn, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you. I can't say anything more. Really fantastic insight and really helpful for us. Sophie's back, so I'll let Sophie introduce the next section. I'll also apologise to everyone. Sophie's just texted me to say stop clicking your pen. It's an excitement thing that I have, so I'm really sorry. So yeah.
I said stop clicking your pen, bro. You got to have the Kiwi vibe whenever I send a message, definitely. So I will share something with you all that are attending. I have not publicly spoken before, so it feels fairly audacious that this is my first public speaking engagement. So I apologize. When I started, I got far too excited and missed a lot of critical information that came through the chat. So just to cover these off, the recordings will be given after each day of each summit. We'll send those who, thank you, Marcus. We'll send those who attended a link to that recording. You will get CPD-verified certificates. We will give those at the end of the summit, so at the end of the third day, just so we can collate everything all at once and we know what ones you attended, etc. And you can come and go through the day as you need. If something's not vibing with you, you can go have a cup of coffee, do whatever you need. There won't be anything that will bar you from returning. Hi, Alex. The slides, we will send them to you at the end of the day. There was a few questions about that. And questions, ask them. Collaborate in the chat. That has been a joy to see you guys doing. We actually have Calathea at the end of the day. They have a 15-minute session where they'll be answering these questions. So if any are missed, there'll be an opportunity for those to be answered there. And any that are a little bit more knuckly, we will email you directly and privately. And as I said, keep asking questions, collaborate. It is a joy to see your comments, HMRC vibes. We'll keep making notes of that. We will talk to them to some capacity. But now I'm going to introduce a fireside chat that we have with Alex. Alex is the director of Soaring Falcon. Alex is a fantastic example of how to adopt technology within your firm. And she often does speaking engagements as well, and has a really unique modern perspective on the accounting industry. She's also Firmcheck's Chief Global Brand Ambassador, which is a joke from our launch day, but we really love Alex. And when she turns her camera back on, as I hand over, you'll see she's in a beautiful location at the moment. So I'll leave the stage and leave Kevin Alex to talk about how Alex manages AML compliance in Soaring Falcon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. And let's just get it out of the way straight away. Alex, where are you?
Koh Samui at the moment.
Koh Samui Island, a lovely Thai island. I have been there a couple of times. Such a joy talking to you in 4 degrees, pouring rain in Scotland. So an absolute joy. Alex, how are you? You well? Enjoying the summit so far? I know I can see you sort of jumping in and out. Does it make kind of sense here?
Yeah, no, it does. Like there's a lot of information, but all of it is really relevant. And I think, that's why a lot of people are joining, because I think it's an area that is easily missed. But at the same time, it's something that we genuinely have to do and keep on top of every day. So yeah, it's really, really good that you put the summit on.
Good stuff. It's a short chat. It's only 50 minutes, and having met you a couple of times, we could probably take over the whole 3 hours of the summit. So let's go against our own instinct and try and keep this short. Introduce your practice. Give the audience a little sort of taster of the unique sort of-ness of how you go about your day-to-day craft.
Yeah, sure. So I set up my company up in 2015. Same as a lot of people now, it's like digital and paperless, etc. And I predominantly look after clients that have launched in the UK from overseas, mainly technology or software partners. And then also if they want to then launch overseas as well, then I have an international network and partners globally. So if they want to do that, so that's kind of like my niche area. What I've supported, and again, hence why I've become the ambassador for Firmcheck. So yeah, as an example. But yeah, it's a little bit about my practice, and yeah, get to travel around and yeah, be on the right time zones for them. So it's great.
So you've kind of highlighted that, and that it is quite unique, and you use technology to do that. Now, when we speak to a lot of firms about AML, and I'm really sorry, we need to talk about AML and not Thai food.
It's fine.
Majority of accountants, let's be honest, majority of accountants that are on this call probably deal with local firms or people that are close proximity to their practice, or certainly have been long-standing customers. Now, you're or clients. You're not like that. You've just said that. You're very specific on who you take on. There could be overseas element to that, and there might be overseas directors or a whole host of things, whether that be investment or even tech. So how important is a stringent AML process to you as a firm to protect your practice straight away?
I mean, it's it's definitely high on my list. I suppose like I'm ACCA qualified, so it was drilled into us about AML and compliance and checking everything. And also something that happened quite some time ago with me is a client in the past through a company that I worked with. They were actually doing money laundering. And so the police actually turned up to the office and wanted to question me. And I was so scared. I thought, my God, I'm going to lose my license, my qualification. So I went through a process prior, before my business. And so when I set up my company, it was just one of those things that I thought, I want to ensure that I'm doing everything accurately and properly. And so I have the KYC, the Know Your Client list. We do AMLs. We have done from the very, very beginning risk assessment. I always try and meet my clients. It might not always be straight away, but it will be at some stage. We try to do all of the things in the background, like checking websites, checking their personal, like their addresses, and making sure that they're genuine. And then also keeping track of transactions. So if there's any transactions that go through, because we've got access to, it's all transparent now because it's all cloud and we can pull things out. So if there's any unusual activity or what we see is unusual activity, then I will question it. So it's really, really high on my list. And especially from when I was younger, back in the day, when I got called, the police came to the office, I was really scared. So I don't want to ever go through that again.
When you were younger, I won't flatter you too much. I want to pick up on a word that you used consistently there, and it's a very small word, and actually in Scotland it also means small, but you keep using the word we, and I think that's important. You really drill this into your team as well. It's a team effort, AML, and although ultimately it's your name above the door, if that makes sense, and it's your business, how much do you work and how hard do you work to make sure that your team not only know their obligations but take them importantly, if that makes sense? They feel accountable. Is that something that you work really hard on?
Yeah, so again, from being ACCA qualified, like it's drilled into our heads. And then when you set up a business and a practice, it's really important that your team are actually aware on money laundering and all the stuff that goes on behind it, because they're the ones that actually do the work. They're the ones that see the day-to-day transactions. They're the ones that, understand what's going on with the business. So I get to see like the end result of that, and I review transactions, and I get to see, make the decisions or give feedback to my client based on the data that my team have given me. So actually, it's really important that all the team are trained in like money laundering, because essentially they're the ones that need to highlight to me as well as the money laundering officer within my company. Like you said, my name is above the door, and I have to make sure that I have the right type of client within the business, because it can be quite scary if something like this does actually happen. And I'm sure it has happened to people in the past when you don't actually know what's going on, but something potentially is going on in a business and you're not aware that it's actually money laundering. Which is what happened to me like in the past. And so it is really important that the team are trained and they really understand what to look for. And especially when you're onboarding clients as well, that they understand that we have to make sure that we have genuine people that we're actually doing work for, that they're genuine business and they're not some random business that we don't know about.
Have you ever, just on that point, and someone made the in the chat box, in the previous talk with Glenn, do you say that to your clients? Have you ever turned a client down? Has a client ever turned you down because you said, hey, listen, I need to do all these checks? Like, are you afraid of, I don't want to say losing business, that's not fair, but does winning the client take over the sort of relationship there when it comes to AML, or is that just I know what your answer is going to be, but is it just a solid sort of red line for you?
I've never come across a situation where a client has said to me that we're not going to provide information. It's part of our onboarding as well. So we send our letter of engagement. They obviously have to sign that. We provide tax assurance, and obviously it's my name that I'm signing off on everything. It's my practicing certificate that I've worked hard for. So this is what I do. It's like my pride and joy, basically. And so it's really important that people understand that having like the letter of engagement, having all the AML in the background, they implement that into their practice. So it is it's definitely something that you need within the business. Sorry, I'm getting messages. Hi.
I know. I was just going to say anyone else. Just say I wonder who she is. Good morning to her as well. And it's funny you say implement in the practice, and again, we've only kind of got 3 or 4 minutes left.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you said, transactions are all based in the cloud, and you should be on that on a daily basis, and that's kind of like AML, and again, I'll go back to the very end of the session with Glenn there. It's perhaps the labeling AML and the fact that it's been pushed into an end of year task or a big huge task, if that makes sense, a one-off non-fee earning task, but really AML should be implemented into the daily transactions, the daily bank rec, just an overall mindset of really digging deep into understanding your client, not as an AML burden, but as a support service tool that you can use to just enhance what your client gets from you, right?
Yeah, I think I think genuinely, like, it's also like to protect us, I think,
100%.
because it's when we do our job, like we always have to make sure that we're working with genuine businesses, and sometimes it could be people that you actually know that become friends with you, that you've known for a long time. And they're the ones essentially that you need to like keep an eye on. So it's actually to protect us rather than the client in this situation. And so it is in the day-to-day activity of the business, but it's something that you have to be on top of like consistently. It's not just, we're just going to onboard this client and we're going to just do an AML today and we're just going to get their ID verified. It's not about that. It's a consistent thing that you have to do throughout the entire year on a regular basis. So again, just making sure that we have like genuine business activity. So again, I have overseas clients, but I've met my clients. I know they have genuine businesses with the clients I work with. If there was a situation where I didn't feel comfortable with something, then I have to do my job as money laundering officer, essentially potentially resign from that client and then report them.
Yeah, and nobody likes doing that.
No.
But to you say, you're protecting yourself and you're protecting your business. No one else is going to do it, and you know it is your business. Final 30 seconds, Alex. I kind of want to ask where you said you're heading back to the UK, aren't you? So
Yes.
in terms of the audience, I know you're very deep and you offer a lot of peer support, and you know you enjoy sharing your best practices. So you're heading back to the UK soon. Will we be seeing you at accounting events in the next couple of months? As usual, is that with a lovely
yes, of
tan,
course. Yeah, sorry
Yeah.
guys, but yeah. So I'm going to be at the in Birmingham, the Fab Festival. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I'll be speaking there, and a digital accountancy show, and probably Accountex as well. So definitely be at the events this year. And I think I'm also ACCA Ireland, so a small conference there. So a few places. Really looking forward to talking about my journey, AML. And anything else, any questions people have, please feel free to get in touch.
Alex, thank you very much. I'll let you go and grab a spring roll and a Thai noodle soup and
sure.
Here or that, and we'll see you in the next couple of weeks. Thank you as always. Alex's website's on the screen now, and definitely connect with her on LinkedIn. Is huge value of learning how she approaches her work, and actually just the energy of Alex is always good. So thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you. All right, take care, guys. Enjoy the rest.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Kev. We're back.
I found myself clicking the pen again. I just chucked it.
I know.
Across the room. Do you know what? I've now got a measuring tape.
Yeah, just buff it away, dude. No, Alex is fantastic, and like she's left now, but publicly she's been really awesome and such a great resource for me to understand accountants. I actually was a makeup artist a few years ago before this job, so I have a lot to learn, and Alex is really, really, really great resource. So that's fantastic. So great. So now we are going to move on to David Winch. David Winch is the director of MLRO support. So he supports accounting firms with their AML requirements and advisory. The first time I met David Winch was at Accountex North, which was Firmcheck's. Hi, David. It was Firmcheck's premiere birthday. And David got the whole of Accountex North to sing happy birthday to his niece. So as soon as he did that, I thought, this dude is something. So in this session, David's going to cover the people and processes of AML. Everybody get your workbooks out. If you're not using a digital workbook, definitely a pen and paper. David has a tendency to say really profound things, but then doesn't think that they're profound. So he tends to, you got to get those nuggets as they come up. After this, we will cover the how to write a risk assessment workshop, but I will leave the floor to David.
Well, thank you, Sophie. That's great. So just very briefly as an introduction, I'm going to do two 30-minute slots. The first one is on the people and processes of AML, and the second one is on risk assessments. And there will be two separate 30-minute slots, and at the end of each 30-minute slot, I'm going to do a few minutes of Q&A. I probably won't be looking too much at the chat during the session, because frankly, I could talk about AML till midnight, and we don't want to do that. So I don't want to get too distracted by going off on tangents on the chat. The views that I express here are mine. I'm not representing any of the professional bodies, so I can be nasty about them. That's great. I'm not representing Firmcheck, so I don't have to say Firmcheck is wonderful. I'm purely putting across my own views. And as Sophie said, recordings will be available subsequently. So I'm not going to use slides. I'm just going to talk at you, you poor people. So if you miss stuff, you can look at the recordings tomorrow and so on. Just by way of background, what I do, I help accountancy firms with their AML. But also I have a second string, as it were, as a forensic accountant dealing in crime and proceeds of crime. So, for example, I'm dealing with a lot of drug dealers, fraudsters, money launderers, and so on. Usually, I'm instructed by the defence, so I'm trying to explain how it's all been an awful misunderstanding, and so on. But it does give me actually a lot of experience that's relevant to money laundering. So the two do sort of fit together. In the money laundering side, I speak to a lot of accountancy firms, sometimes on Zoom, sometimes I go and spend a day with them. Sometimes I'm just preparing policies and procedures documents for them, or preparing risk assessment, firm-wide risk assessments for them, or so on. And I would say that every accountancy firm is unique. No firm is totally like another, but they do have common features. And I would say that accountants, overall, they want to help their clients. You know, this is actually why we went into the accountancy business, to actually help your clients. And a lot of accountants do not, frankly, do not see the AML procedures as being useful in helping their clients. They don't see AML compliance as a means to the end of helping their clients. In fact, they would say, if anything, it gets in the way, it takes time, it costs them money. They often feel that they can't bill for the time and effort that they're spending. And so when I recently asked on Accounting Web, you know, what are the good things about AML from an accountant's point of view, I got an awful lot of people saying there are no good things about AML. I'm going to try and persuade you that that's not perhaps the whole truth. So I asked myself, what is the purpose of AML compliance? Now, as I say, I'm not representing any of the professional bodies, so I can be quite frank about what I think the purpose of AML compliance is. And I think there are three elements to it. In my view, the primary purpose of AML compliance is AML compliance. In other words, you are doing it because your supervisory body says you have to do it, and so you're doing it. And the purpose is to keep the supervisory body off your back. That's the primary purpose. That's the primary reason, let's be honest. That is the real reason that accountants do AML compliance. They do it because they're told they've got to do it, and if they don't do it, they'll be in trouble. The secondary purpose, which is a bit more useful to you, is that it helps you systemize a way of collecting and collating information about your clients, KYC as we call it, know your client information, which might actually be useful to you in helping to serve your clients. It might actually be useful in doing your job of helping clients. And the third purpose is the deterrence and detection of crime. Now, some people might say, well, actually, I've got those three in the wrong order. The first purpose is detection of crime. I don't think that's how it works out in practice. When I talk to accountants, they do not say to me, I've got a load of clients who are criminals, and I find that out because I get their passports and I get their driving licenses and I check their addresses, and this tells me that they're criminals. No, that's not what happens. That is, to me, almost a byproduct of AML compliance. And AML compliance, I'm going to talk about three key documents in AML compliance. Now, sometimes I make a list of 5 key documents or 6 key documents, but today I'm just going to talk about 3 key documents. First is the AML policies and procedures document, sometimes called the AML policies, controls and procedures document. And in a sense, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about in this first half hour. The second one is the firm-wide risk assessment, the firm-wide AML risk assessment. And essentially, that's what we're going to be talking about in the second half hour. The third one is training records. In terms of the policies, controls and procedures document, because every firm is unique, because no firm is exactly like another firm, then the policies, controls and procedures document also needs to be unique to your firm. And indeed, as we'll say in the second section, the firm-wide risk assessment needs to be unique to your firm. Now, I know somebody in a session said, not today, somebody in another session that I was at said, you must not use templates. I think that's quite wrong. By all means, use templates. Get a template. I've seen in the chat somebody referring to the ACCA template, for example, for policies, controls and procedures. Yeah, by all means, use a template from your professional body, get those templates, but that's not the end of it. You have to tailor that to how your firm works and what your firm is like. I have seen quite a lot of the people I deal with are actually contacting me because they are in trouble with their professional body. They've got the professional body threatening or taking disciplinary action against them. And that's a huge subject of anxiety. You know, that causes real anxiety to accountants. I've had accountants say to me, hey, I've got 10 employees. Are we going to get shut down? Are they going to lose their jobs? I'm not sleeping nights. You really don't want to get yourself in a position of having disciplinary action against you. But yeah, by all means, use the templates. But I say to people, right, what did you send in when they asked you? And they send me stuff and it says, we at insert name of firm here take money laundering very seriously. Literally, it says that, you know, for crying out loud. Get the templates, use the templates as a basis, as a structure, but tailor them to your own particular circumstances. There are, I think, 4 groups of firms I'm going to suggest in terms of size. There's the one-man band, where literally there is just a person, there's no staff, there may not even be a secretary these days. There's just a person with a laptop doing their own thing. That's the smallest firm in terms of employees. Great thing about that, you don't actually need to name an MLRO if you're just the person, because you are the MLRO, you're everything. And you're not required to screen your employees for their integrity and so on. Of course, the other side of that coin is if you're more than a one-man band, then you do need to name an individual as the MLRO. And in practice, your professional body will ask for your name, for the name of the MLRO. And you do need to have some system of employee screening, fit and proper and so on. Then slightly bigger, you get a firm where there's one principal and there is some staff or there's some subcontract people working. Now, in those circumstances, your policies and controls and procedures document shouldn't be talking about things like the MLRO will report to the board of directors, because there is no board of directors, there's just you. So you don't need to say that in those things. But you will need, of course, an MLRO, you will need employee screening and so on. And then moving forward to where we've got several principals and staff and perhaps subcontractors, then you might be reaching a situation where you have the role that we typically describe as accountants. We typically talk about the MLRO as being the money laundering guy. But actually, there are 2 roles set out in the money laundering regulations. One is to do with reporting suspicions, and taken literally, the money laundering reporting officer is the person who reports suspicions. And one role is about ensuring that the firm complies with the money laundering regulations. so that it's got a firm-wide risk assessment, it's got policies, controls and procedures document, it undertakes client due diligence, it has client risk assessments, staff are trained and so on, all these things that you're required to do. And that role is, strictly speaking, sometimes called the money laundering compliance officer. And the compliance officer does not have to be the same person who does the reporting officer. You see, particularly in legal firms, firms of solicitors, that they have a separate money laundering compliance officer from the money laundering reporting officer. Obviously, that only makes sense where you've got more than one principal. And then if we go up another stage to larger firms where you're talking about, say, 50 staff or more, they may have an AML department. They may have an internal audit department, because one of the things that we have to do as part of our compliance is we have to review the firm's own compliance. And that we can do by having somebody who is not the money laundering reporting officer or not the money laundering compliance officer, looking at checking, as almost doing an internal audit of the firm's own money laundering compliance. And that is something which firms are expected to do. It's sometimes overlooked, but we are expected to do that, particularly in larger firms. So that is the 4 groups that I've suggested and how those groups differ. Does software help? Well, yeah. Do you have to have AML software? No, you don't have to have AML software. You don't have to have accounts preparation software, do you? You could do it without software. You don't have to have software to help you submit tax returns. Actually, probably you do now because of HMRC requirements. But can AML software help? Yes, it can. It can make it your AML compliance more consistent. It can make your AML compliance easier. It can help you, for example, contact clients to get initial ID documents. It can help make sure that you are reminded to do things that you need to do. We talk a lot about annual risk reviews. We talk a lot about annual reviews of the firm-wide risk assessment, annual reviews of the policies, controls and procedures documents. You know, software can help you remember, for want of a better word, that these things do need to be looked at. I was helping a firm recently. I asked for their policies, controls and procedures document. I get it. And lo and behold, it's talking about the money laundering regulations 2007. So clearly that hadn't been looked at, certainly since 2017, when the last latest money laundering regulations came out. So AML policies, controls and procedures document, what's going to be in that? As I said, do by all means get hold of a template and do use that as a basis to give the structure of what you do. And I actually think that the ACCA template is quite a good one for the money laundering controls and procedures documents. You will know, if you've heard me speak at other events, I'm actually quite critical of ACCA, but their policies, controls and procedures document I do think is a good one. What does that cover? Well, I can give you a quick list. It covers the responsibilities of the MLRO. And we've already mentioned some of those. We've already talked about the possible distinction between the MLR reporting officer and the ML compliance officer. But yeah, so the policies, controls and procedures document will set out, and of course it does need to be a document, it does need to be in writing, will set out what the MLRO's responsibilities are, very briefly. And it will mention that the firm has a firm-wide risk assessment. Obviously, it is not the firm-wide risk assessment. That's a separate document. We'll come on to that in the second half hour. But it will mention that there's a firm-wide risk assessment and talk about some of the features of that. And then proliferation financing. Gosh, what can we say about proliferation financing? It obviously makes sense from a Whitehall perspective, from a government perspective, to say, well, accountants shouldn't be involved in financing the proliferation of what you might call weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons, biological weapons, chemical weapons, radiological weapons. Accountants shouldn't be involved in assisting the illegal production or transport or sale of those things. So from a government perspective, it makes sense to think, right, let's put something in the money laundering regulations requiring accountants and others to address that risk. And so it is in the money laundering regulations. We have to comply with the money laundering regulations. So that means that your AML policies, controls and procedures document will say something about proliferation financing. But gosh, you're going to keep it brief, aren't you? Because how many of your clients are actually involved in the production or distribution or sale of nuclear weapons? I can have a pretty fair guess how many of them are. So what you will say maybe is just simply that as far as you're aware, none of your clients are engaged in the production, distribution, sale of nuclear, chemical, biological or radiological weapons or components of those weapons. And that's it, done. You've satisfied the regulations, fine. More importantly, more relevantly, your policies, controls and procedures document is going to talk about training and it's going to talk about staff screening. You must train all the relevant staff in AML. How you do it is up to you, but you must do it, and there has to be some sort of refresher every year or 2 years at the outside. And also, you do have to have some form of staff screening, again, assuming you've got staff. So we're talking about getting staff to fill in a form saying, I don't have any commercial connections with clients, I don't own any clients, I don't have any convictions for fraud or tax evasion or anything like that, and getting them to fill it in once a year and sticking it in a file somewhere. And then most significantly, the policies, controls and procedures document will explain how you do client due diligence, how you address where it's needed enhanced client due diligence, how you deal with or how you recognize situations where you might use simplified due diligence. And frankly, again, simplified due diligence isn't likely to be relevant to most of the firms attending this webinar. It's relevant where your client is, for example, a local authority or government body or a quoted company. And there sometimes you can use simplified due diligence. And the logic of it is that, look, if your client is the local authority and they have 120 councillors, are you going to do CDD on 120 councillors and the chief executive and the treasurer and this? No, are you heck? So you can use a simplified system. And the reason for that, the government's reason for that, if you like, is that these sort of organizations have bookshelves full of manuals, of policies and procedures of their own. They probably have their own internal audit people. And so there is less risk, so the government thinks, of corruption and money laundering and so on going on. Now, you may think, or I may think, that actually there isn't less risk, but hey, we're talking about complying with the money laundering regulations here. Then the policies, controls and procedures document is going to talk about your client risk assessments, your sanctions screening. I saw a question earlier. Do accountants do sanction screenings? Yes, of course, we all do that religiously, don't we? Well, we're supposed to. Then the suspicious activity reporting procedures, internal suspicious activity reporting by staff to the MLRO, and what the MLRO does with that, and so on. And record keeping. And how long do you keep your AML records? The answer has to be, well, we keep them for at least 5 years after the client has ceased to be a client. And I'm talking here about the CDD records, the risk assessments, and so on. I'm not talking about the client's accounting records. So yes, you have to keep those for 5 years after the client ceases to be a client. You're in danger, of course, of coming into GDPR conflicts there. And finally, the policies, controls and procedures document has to have a record of when it was created, when it was updated, and so on, what we call version control. And yeah, so my final point I've mentioned already, but I'll come back to it. There needs to be some sort of system within the firm of internal review of your money laundering compliance. Not if you're a sole trader, but if you're anything bigger. Now, I can see Sophie's wanting to shut me up.
Never,
So,
ever.
have we got time for a couple of minutes to see if there's any questions?
Yeah, that's why I jumped in, just to make sure that there was that opportunity. So anybody that hasn't yet asked a question, chuck them in the chat. We'll flag them as questions, bring them onto the stage. There's currently one sitting there that will answer. Also, to make talk in the chat, what are you writing in your workbooks? What are you making notes of? Share it, because other people might have missed some tidbits of information that were just shared. And that's the whole point of the summit, is in an effort to collaborate, create a community, and bring AML to the forefront of discussion. It doesn't need to be a hidden thing that you're sometimes ashamed of or stressed about. My favorite thing, and it was something that we talked about in our previous meetings, was you talking about having someone in the firm looking after, called the money laundering reporting officer, and then a money laundering compliance officer. So these people can have other responsibilities within the firm as this. But the reason why I really liked this, and we've since recommended it to Firmcheck customers and prospects, is that if one person leaves the firm, there's still that other person there that knows the AML processes that you undertake and what that is, because people get pregnant, people leave, people pass away. So it's important that you, I don't mean to be grim, but keep that knowledge circulating.
Certainly, I saw something which somebody said recently on another forum, that's saying, look, the MLRO role is getting to be a full-time role for a member of staff. And I sincerely hope that's not the case. I mean, we don't start in the accountancy business as an accountancy practice in order to be AML experts. We're there to be accountants. We're there to serve clients, to help them succeed. And AML, as I've suggested, can be useful in some ways in collecting information to help clients succeed. But AML is not intended to be a full-time job for a senior member of the firm. And it has to be a senior member because the MLRO has to be somebody who has got the clout to be able to say to partners, if need be, look, this is dodgy, we want none of it, we're going to tell this client we're through. That needs somebody with a bit of heft in the firm to be able to do that. So you can't give it, unfortunately, to the newest recruit who is otherwise, making
Which
the
we'd
tick.
love to. We've heard that too from Firmcheck side, that the intern gets the AML work in the firm. So we had this question from Mark David. Can you outline the minimum a one-man band needs to do to comply for AML? For instance, it seems a little bit.
So
the answer.
A one-man band, I'm talking about somebody where there's no staff at all, except perhaps the secretary. So there's no account staff. Then that person effectively is the MLRO, because there is nobody else. They don't have to do the screening. If you want to look up the regulations, don't we all love reading regulations? It's Regulation 21 of the Money Laundering Regulations 2017 that says expressly they don't need to do screening. They don't need to do these things if they are just the sole individual. And the logic is, you are everything. You know, if there's only you, you're it. The buck starts and stops with you. You are the MLRO. You do have to have training. Even a sole practitioner on his own has to have training in AML, has to have a policies and procedures document, has to have a training record, has to have a firm-wide risk assessment. Sorry, I did say I could talk all day about this.
I've got one more question related that I've just pulled out. So we have, should we regularly do the KYC/AML check and RA for ad hoc clients?
Short answer is yes.
I knew it would be.
When we were talking about the maturity model, we talked about 5 levels, you and I and Kevin and so on. And I said, I think there's another level here. I want it to be a level 0, where somebody doesn't even realize that the money laundering regs apply to them. And I find this with what are sometimes called fractional CFOs, where you've got somebody who's a sort of self-employed finance director for maybe half a dozen companies, and says, I don't do accounts, I don't do tax returns, I just talk to people about their money and their business. I'm not an accountant in practice. I don't need to bother with AML. Sorry, that's not the way the professional bodies see it. The professional bodies would say, you are an accountant in practice because you are giving money-related advice, money-related information to half a dozen clients on a self-employed basis. All the money laundering regs apply to you just as if you were preparing accounts, preparing tax returns, and so on. So that's kind of a level 0 that I come across sometimes where people say, I haven't bothered with the MLR because it didn't apply to me. Woohoo!
Yeah.
And sadly, it does.
Yeah, no, I remember when they had that conversation about some firms that don't even know if AML requirements apply to them, and so what do we call them? Naught, because they don't know. They're not even on the map.
But they should be aware.
Yeah, but just to clarify, everybody here wouldn't be a naught because you're here, you're making an effort, so don't worry.
Yes.
Is it me? Yes. Okay, that's fantastic. Pardon?
You get at least a level 1.
Yeah. Surely more. No, so we have some questions, additional questions, really awesome ones as well that have come through. I've flagged them as questions. So we'll move on to the how to write a risk assessment second part of your talk, David. But these questions I'll leave to sit there. You're welcome to answer them, David. But we also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the summit. And we also have a demo of the Firmcheck product with Kev, because we do need to meet some Firmcheck requirements that we show you the software. I'll leave you to do your...
Sorry, I'm talking over you, Sophie. One thing I should say is different AML people have different views. So I won't be at all surprised or embarrassed if when we come to Lucy doing the AML questions later today, she gives different answers to the ones I've given. That's absolutely fine. We have 22 different supervisory bodies for accountants in the UK. And those supervisory bodies have different views as to how things should be done. And as somebody mentioned in the Q&A, some of those supervisory bodies actually require you to use their portal to do your risk assessments. And that can be an issue because of duplication of effort and so on. So yeah, there isn't always just an answer, which is right for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Can I move on to how to write a risk assessment? Because
I'll virtually walk away and I'll come back in 5 minutes before just for additional Q&A. So I'll leave you to it. You're rocking it.
That's lovely. Thanks, Sophie. Okay, so right. I've written myself a little note saying here with just 2 words on it, and they are documentation and risk. And documentation is absolutely crucial to AML compliance. I remember when I was training, and I hate to tell you how long ago that was, but when I was training, one of my bosses said to me, "If you haven't written it down, David, you haven't done it. It didn't happen." And that is so true in the context of AML compliance. If it's not written down, if it's not documented, then you've got a problem. How many times have I talked to firms of accountants and said, "Do you do training?" "Oh yeah, we talk about money laundering every week or every month at our staff meetings." Right, is there a record of that? No. Didn't happen, doesn't count. So documentation is very important to AML compliance, but risk also. I sometimes feel I should have risk tattooed on my forehead because risk, AML compliance is all about risk assessment, much like audit these days is all about risk assessment. And there are, I'm going to suggest 5 levels of risk hierarchy. Now, these are not the 5 levels that we're talking about in the AML maturity compliance. It's quite different. There is, if you like, the global view, the worldwide view of the risk of money laundering. And in that context, we talk about the Financial Action Task Force, which is a body, which is not a national body, it's a supranational body that talks about money laundering risk and sets forth recommendations as to how that should be addressed. And then below that, we have got the UK government's tier of risk assessment. And the UK government produces a document saying how it sees money laundering risk in the UK. Now, I hope that all the people here will be celebrating on Friday with Friday this week with cakes and fireworks and things, because on Friday, the 1st of March 2024, we celebrate 20 years of money laundering regulations applying to accountants. The MLR first applied to accountants in general practice on the 1st of March 2004. And here we are 20 years later, and we're still talking about it. I've heard people say, let's wind back the clock. Let's go back to a time when we didn't have money laundering regulations. Well, you're going to have to go back a long way. The money laundering regulations, I'm afraid, are here to stay. They're not going to go away. And the UK government is very keen on them. We used to get our money laundering directives from the EU when we were in the EU. We left the EU. Did that have any impact on our money laundering regulations? No, not a jot. All we did was change the wording on the front and produced very, very similar money laundering regulations. And if anything, the UK government has been keen to do more than the minimum in terms of requiring money laundering compliance. So we've got the global view of money laundering risk. We've got the UK government view of money laundering risk. And then below that, we have the accountancy sector. And the accountancy sector has its view of money laundering risk as applied to accountants. We have a body called OPPAS, which is something like the Office of Professional something or other. OPBAS, I always forget what OPBAS stands for. Somebody probably will tell me in the chat. And then below them, we have the professional bodies who get beaten up by OPBAS for not doing enough to supervise you and me, the accountancy firms. We have HMRC, which is also a supervisor of accountants, but not limited to accountants. And indeed, the Financial Conduct Authority supervises some accountants, but not most of them. So we have the global view, the UK government's view, we have the accountancy sector view, and the accountancy sector view is best expressed probably by the CCAB guidance on money laundering. Now, my own view is that the CCAB guidance for money laundering isn't particularly well attuned to what accountants do. It seems to me that the CCAB guidance is about what the money laundering regulations are about, rather than about what accountants do that might be relevant to money laundering. And the money laundering regulations, of course, are produced by the government, and they apply not just to accountants and solicitors and other professionals, they apply to banks and so on and so on. So the money laundering regulations are not written for us. And it seems to me that the CCAB guidance, which follows those national money laundering regulations very closely, is not particularly well written for us. But that's me slagging off the CCAB. Then below that, the fourth tier of risk assessment is the firm-wide risk assessment. And that is a risk assessment that you write about the money laundering risks relevant to your firm. And that's what we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail in a minute. And then below that, the fifth level of risk is the individual client risk assessment. So that is to do with the money laundering risk as you perceive it in relation to a particular client. Each of those levels of risk is supposed to feed off the one above. So the individual client risk assessment is supposed to feed off your firm-wide risk assessment, which feeds off the accountancy sector's risk assessment, which feeds off the UK government's risk assessment, which feeds off the global risk assessment of the Financial Action Task Force. Whew. Right, I need a drink. Okay, my next little bit, I've headed the risk of low risk. And again, I'm going to be a bit controversial, as this is a personal view. When I am writing a firm-wide risk assessment for a firm, which I do as part of my AML work, I never use the word low anywhere in it. I avoid that word like the plague. Why? Because surely a lot of our clients are low risk. Surely I should be saying low risk here, low risk there. And I don't. And the reason is that I'm writing the firm-wide risk assessment very much with an eye to what the supervisory body will say and think about it. And to a supervisory body, if I start saying all my clients are low risk or most of my clients are low risk, that could be seen as a sign of complacency on my part. It could be seen as a sign that actually I don't understand the money laundering risk that exists. So for supervisors, I almost think if they see low risk, low risk, low risk, it is counterproductive. Rather than calming them down and making them think, oh, this is a low risk environment, we needn't worry too much, what it actually does is alarms them, makes them think that the accountant perhaps doesn't understand the risks that his firm faces. And the other thing about low risk is that it can be confused with simplified due diligence, which applies, as I've said, to government bodies and quoted companies. And you don't have those sort of clients. So if you start saying this is low risk, and if you then go on and say we've applied simplified due diligence, you're just plain wrong in terms of, Aunt Agatha, who's in the old folks home, who has a tax return to do. I wouldn't say she's low risk. I would say she's normal risk. So the word that I use all the time is normal risk, normal risk, normal risk. I don't talk about low risk in a firm-wide risk assessment. And I would also say that describing something as low risk doesn't actually bring you any advantage, because you're going to apply the same client due diligence as you would if it was normal risk. So why describe something as low risk and have the chance that the supervisory body is going to be alarmed because you're doing this? Just describe it all the way through as normal risk. So as I say, I never use the word low. Personal view, I never use the word low in a firm-wide risk assessment. So let's come on to talk a little bit more about the firm-wide AML risk assessment. As I've mentioned, there are templates. I particularly like the ACCA firm-wide risk assessment template. Now, I have seen from the survey, from the maturity survey, it said 28% of firms that they interviewed, this is the Firmcheck survey, 28% of firms that they interviewed did not have a firm-wide risk assessment. Now, to me, if you imagine you're doing your driving test, going back probably a few years to when you learned to drive, suppose you've driven through a red traffic light. How would you expect that to affect your driving test result? Well, I think you know, you're going to fail. And similarly, I would say if your firm hasn't got a firm-wide risk assessment, fix that. Fix that now. Get it fixed, certainly by the end of March. Get your firm-wide risk assessment in place, because whenever you have a supervisor's review, if you've no firm-wide risk assessment at all, you're going to get picked up on that. If it's ICAEW, they might say to you, right, you've got 30 days to sort that out. Produce a firm-wide risk assessment. Let us have a copy. If it's ACCA, they are quite possibly going to say to you, we think this is a disciplinary matter. We're going to refer you to the professional conduct department. You really don't need that. You really don't need that stress. So get your firm-wide risk assessment in place if you haven't got one already. And when you're writing it, I said I like the ICAEW one. The reason I like the ICAEW one is because it starts with a paragraph or two about the firm. When you're writing your firm-wide risk assessment, I want you to imagine that you know nothing at all about your firm. And then write those initial paragraphs to sketch out a thumbnail sketch of your firm. How many partners you have, how many staff you have, roughly what the annual fees are, how many offices you have. Are most of your clients within, say, a 30-mile radius of your offices, or do you get them online? Do you deal with clients face-to-face through Zoom or something like that? Or do you actually just deal remotely by email? What sort of businesses are your clients in? Do you have a particular niche? If your thing is manufacturing companies, for example, then yeah, put that in as in the initial paragraphs of the firm-wide risk assessment. If you are part of a particular culture and you get your clients from that culture, then put that in so that somebody picking up, some supervisor picking up the firm-wide risk assessment, when they do a review of your firm, a remote review, the first document that they are likely to pick up is the firm-wide risk assessment. So I want them to pick it up, read the first couple of 3 paragraphs and think, oh yeah, right, I understand what this firm's about. I understand who they are, what makes them tick, and what sort of clients they have and what sort of business they're in. So that would be very useful to a supervisor, and indeed it can be useful to you actually, to stop and think, who are we? What do we do? What makes our firm unique? What do we excel at in terms of dealing with clients? And get that dotted down at the beginning of the firm-wide risk assessment. And then you go on to talk about the key risk areas. Number one, of course, is clients. Who are your clients? What sort of things do they do? Are they, say, owner-managed businesses? Or do you perhaps have a thing of property companies or landlords? Do you have a focus on charities or whatever it happens to be? Set that out in terms of the clients, and then you spell out what sort of money laundering risks might relate to those sort of clients and how you mitigate those risks. And frankly, a firm-wide risk assessment can be a bit repetitive, because in each of these sections, we're going to talk about how do you mitigate these risks. And part of the mitigation is, well, we train our staff in AML. Well, we look for things that are unusual and things that don't make sense. And that mitigation is going to appear again and again, because the next section is about the services you provide. And perhaps I should have said in the introduction, you're going to mention briefly the services you provide. And actually in the introduction, I often mention briefly the services that you do not provide. For instance, for example, if you do not do audits, I say that in the introductory paragraph. If you are not insolvency practitioners, I say that in the introductory paragraph. If you don't do payrolls, I say that in the introductory paragraph. I mention payrolls because the powers that be consider that payroll work is higher risk. Now, you may disagree. The logic of it being higher risk is that payrolls could be used to disguise payments to people. They could be treated as PAYE employees to hand cash out to them, and that way to launder some money. Does that happen very often? In my experience, no, it doesn't. But payrolls are considered higher risk. So if that's the service you provide, then obviously in the services section of your firm-wide risk assessment, that's going to be something that you mention. And again, how do you mitigate the risk? With payroll, for example, are your employees in a position where they can make themselves payments from your client's bank account? Do they have authority to do that? I mean, usually they don't. Sometimes they might have authority to make payments from the client bank account to employees, because then, of course, there's the risk that they could create fake employees and send the client's money to a fake person, their brother or whatever. So that's a risk. How do you mitigate that risk? Are the payrolls reviewed by somebody in the office before they go out? Are the payrolls reviewed by the client before they go out, and so on? Geography. Again, we've talked about where the client is. Is the client within a 30-mile radius? Is the client in, let's say, Russia? Okay, if that's the case, then you've an issue. I was talking to an accountant who said to me, yeah, all our clients are local, except we do some work for a diamond dealer in Antwerp. And I'm like, what? Why are you instructed by a diamond dealer in Antwerp? Why doesn't he go to somebody in Antwerp? And obviously these are risks, and you have to say how you mitigate that risk. That comes under geography. And then the next one is transactions. That's sometimes misunderstood. Transactions, not a biggie for accountants, because what we're talking about is transactions with you. We're not talking about the client's transactions with his customers or his suppliers. We're talking about the client's transactions with you. The key issue there is, do you have a client bank account in which you have client monies? If you do, is that controlled in accordance with the requirements of your professional body? Then delivery channels, we've kind of mentioned that already. Do you meet people face to face? Do you meet them by Zoom? Or do you not meet them at all? Do you just email? Again, proliferation financing. We are required to mention proliferation financing, not only in the policies, controls and procedures document, but also mention it again in the firm-wide risk assessment, because that's what the money laundering regulations say. And then anything else that you consider might be a risk area. Finally, on the subject of writing the firm-wide risk assessment, again, version control. There's got to be a bit at the end that says when it was written, when it was revised, briefly what those revisions were, and of course, I should have mentioned this last time, when it's next due to be revised or reviewed, and that should normally be in 12 months' time. So every 12 months, you'll be reviewing your policies, controls and procedures document and your firm-wide risk assessment. And maybe this is the time of year when you should be doing that, when you're not having the 31st of January self-assessment deadline to face, and you're not quite into 5th of April deadlines. Individual client risk assessments, I'm going to have to do that fairly quickly because I've got my eye on the clock. They can follow the same format as the firm-wide risk assessment. So they are similar sort of sections. I have seen some client risk assessments which are simply yes/no questions, where the only answer is either yes or no. You know, is my client a thief, a fraudster, and a money launderer? No. Move on to the next. That isn't good from my point of view. I think there needs to be, particularly where an answer is not the one which is the right answer, then I think there needs to be space for comment and explanation as to how you've addressed the issue. You do have to cover the points raised in the CCAB guidance, and I'm going to list them very quickly. Cash-intensive businesses, high-risk industries, jewelers, scrap metal dealers, and so on. Clients dealt with remotely, high-value dealers, payroll, I've mentioned, high net worth individuals, PEPs, high-risk jurisdictions, anybody who's presented you with false or stolen ID, but I think that's going to be a huge red flag to you anyway. And where somebody has unnecessarily complex or unusual financial arrangements that just don't make any commercial sense, and you wondering if that's to hide some sort of criminality. I also like to add my own questions which are more relevant to accountants in practice. So, for example, I regard as high-risk factors very poor accounting records, somebody who doesn't send me bank statements or bank feeds, they just tell me what's happening at the bank, where a bank account has been closed by the bank, because that may indicate that the bank thinks that there's something untoward going on, where somebody's had an HMRC inquiry and it's caused all sorts of problems, and where there is funds introduced, capital introduced into a business, you need to know what those funds, where those funds have come from. So those are my own questions which I would add on to a risk assessment, but in any event, you have to cover the ones that the CCAB have. Right, Sophie's going to cut me off again.
Never. I really enjoy talking to you because I often make my own notes of my own, increase my own knowledge about AML and the functions in which it operates. And as I said earlier, sometimes you say things that are quite profound, but you don't make a point to like, this is the money maker or this is the laundering prevention measure here. So I was just taking notes throughout. So But we have some questions. I find it really interesting from a Firmcheck perspective, when we've been talking to prospects, customers, etc., we hear about risk assessments often, in that some firms don't have them, as that shows in the maturity model report, which is fascinating, and that some are quite far outdated. It'd be interesting in the chat if anybody could comment if they do have confusion about risk assessments in the general sense before this session, just to affirm whether or not that's me looking in narrow. So one of the questions, of which there are many, you did already answer it, but I just wanted to highlight it further, just a yes or no sort of situation. How often do you need to update your firm's risk assessment? And I'm going to add here, how often do you need to apply it to existing clients?
Right. What I would say is, because of the nature of the work that most accountants do, things tend to be on an annual cycle. Most clients are wanting accounts doing or a tax return doing, and those things happen annually. So what I would say is, when you've picked up the client's file and you're doing some accounts, you're doing a tax return, also review the AML documents related to that client, check if they're up to date, check if there's anything you need to add or change. One thing I should have said and didn't was that if, as a firm, you decide to do a new type of service, say you decide to do wealth management where you've not done it before, then you have to update your policies, controls and procedures document. You have to update your firm-wide risk assessment, because now you are not quite the same firm you were before, and so these things need updating. So the short answer is annually.
Okay, perfect. You got to give that context though, totally.
Yes.
Okay, I have two questions, but we're cutting it fine, but these are ones that I've experienced when talking to people, so they're valuable. So when meeting face-to-face with clients, would this be an issue when following AML procedures? And I'm going to add on here, in the post-COVID world, I'm so sorry to bring it up, we're not always meeting people face-to-face anymore. So how do those sides of the coin apply in your risk assessment?
Right. What I would say is, Sophie, I am at this moment meeting you face to face.
Yes.
Okay. This is a face to face meeting. We're not in the same room, but that doesn't matter. If we were simply corresponding by email and you were sending me PDFs or Excel spreadsheets or something, then that would mean potentially higher risk. Glenn from ACCA was talking about silent directors, silent partners. And yes, you have a feeling of, I don't quite know what's going on here. So that's got to be higher risk. And again, something I should have said, and time has run out, enhanced due diligence is about further work in relation to the particular risk. So enhanced due diligence, if I'm worried about where somebody's got their money from, I don't do enhanced due diligence by asking them for another utility bill or another passport or something like that and confirm their ID. I do enhanced due diligence addressing the particular concern that I have, which in that case would be source of funds.
Yeah, totally. No, great. I'm going to give you a 20-second time limit on this question, but I feel like I'm setting you up here. David, as reviews are carried out 12 months, when there's an update to the FAFT and UK government, for example, on high-risk third countries, there was recently another 2 added and some removed last week. I don't want to name them in case I get it wrong. But how rude is that? New Zealand's been flagged as a high-risk country. It hasn't, but imagine if I said that.
Yeah. Okay.
But I did say it. So when this happens, do we need to review all of our clients?
Yeah, somebody contacted me recently saying I've been asked to do some business with some clients in Russia, and Russia now is regarded as high risk. So yeah, the upshot of all of that was he decided not to do the business because it was just going to be too much hassle. But yeah, if there is a change, if you've got clients in, let's say, Namibia, and Namibia is going to be added to the list, then you've got to think, oh, right, okay, I've got to do more due diligence in relation to that. One of my clients, for example, one firm I'm dealing with, acts for a lot of people who are overseas and buying properties in the UK. And I'm thinking, because that's a high risk area. And how do you confirm where their money's come from if they live in the back of beyond?
Yeah.
And you don't know too much about how banks operate there, how government operates there, and they come up and say, oh yeah, I've got 500,000, I'm going to buy a property. There is a serious money laundering risk there. Yeah.
I need a physical red flag to
Yes,
lift up for the summit. Russia, that would be a real great visual indicator of how we handled that. Definitely. Hey, big fat thank you so much for all your insights. We just put a little link down in the bottom left hand corner of this view. If you want to get in touch with David, if you have greater concerns about your AML compliance or need some additional help. I flagged a multitude of questions. Thank you so much. We'll be sending them to David. He can cherry pick some to answer. And I will note that while you were talking, the sun came out in London. So the brightness of risk assessments and bringing it to light, all the metaphor of it, I had to close the curtain a little bit, which is odd. But I'll leave you, and thank you so much. And where can people see you next as well? You often do speaking engagements.
I do. I'm going to be at the NEC next month for the FAB event. And I rather suspect I might be at Accountex in May, I think it is, in London. So, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's difficult to avoid me.
You're talking about AML until it's sorted, but we're 20 years in, so who knows how much longer that will be. Yes. The thing I would say about FAB is that Wednesday, there is a handful of conversations about AML. So if you're having difficulty or you've done the session and want more resources, go to Birmingham for FAB is a good bet, definitely. Awesome. Thank you so much, David. I will have you off the stage if that's possible.
See you again soon. Bye for now.
I can't wait to see you in person soon. Amazing. Cool. Big jam-packed day. I would love to hear how your workbooks are going, if they're packed full of all the things that you want to implement in your firm. We move on to the Q&A session with Calathea now, with Lucy. I've flagged some questions to be answered, and I've written them down here. Post this. Hi.
Hi.
Post this. We have a demo of the Firmcheck software. You don't have to stay, but if you're curious, we would love to have you there. But otherwise, that's us for day one. We have day 2 and day 3. Day 2 is education. I'll be doing a talk on the AML fundamentals and the history of AML. We have 2020 innovation. It's a great lineup. And day 3, making your firm AML compliant. So that's very exciting. So let's get into some of the questions I've noted down. I haven't seen any of the 50 new messages. I apologize to everybody. So one that I flagged. Is there anything I need to put in my letter of engagement about AML, and how do you communicate AML to your clients? I think that how do you communicate AML to your clients is really prevalent. I've heard that from other firms. People get a bit uptight when you ask them for those sorts of information and details that you need. So how do you go about communicating that?
Well, I think these days people do tend to expect it more. Whenever you open a bank account, you're asked for your details. And I think if you can explain to your clients that you need this information because it is a legal requirement that you do, that it's safe in your hands, then they do tend to give it. You don't hear that many stories these days of people struggling to get that information. However, as you say, letter of engagement, it is important that there is a statement in there that says that you are collecting this documentation and retaining it for the purposes of anti-money laundering. And that is the only reason it is being held and used. And it is important that before you engage with your clients, that statement is made to them. So, and the letter of engagement is the best place to put it, obviously, because then you've got them signing to say they've received that information as well. And so you can prove that you've given it to your client.
Yeah. Debbie's just put in the chat that I've now caught up on. She said, but source of funds, source of wealth, very difficult to get. Do you have any top tips or ways that you go about asking for that information, or any guidance that could be shared on that?
Yeah, so when you're doing enhanced due diligence, often you want to know source of funds, or you've got a transaction that just looks a bit unusual. You want to know where that money's come from. So I think first, if we just define source of funds as opposed to source of wealth. So source of funds is the transaction that you're dealing with, the funds that are there at that point in time that you want to know where that money came from. Whereas source of funds is your client's total assets. So how they got to them. And that might be inheritance or a divorce settlement. And again, the source of funds may be from the same sources if it's more recent wealth they've got. The guidance is that you can look on the internet. You can ask for and like land registry. So if it's from a property sale, you might find the land registry information. You can ask your client for a copy of those legal documents that you would get from a divorce, from a house sale, from an inheritance, and they should give them to you. If they are being difficult in any way, that should raise a red flag, and then maybe you'd need to consider whether an internal report and a SAR should be raised.
Totally. I know we talked aside from this live session about what questions are going to be asked, so I don't mean to go on the fly. Yet again, I'm not an accountant. I'm an event manager. So I just wanted to confirm, when it comes to source of funds and source of wealth, you would define that in your risk assessment about when you require that, and would that only be required when you've flagged the client as a high risk, or?
So the regulations say that when you are doing enhanced due diligence, it might be something that you want to look into. So the regulations won't necessarily define exactly what you need to do in a situation. It should be a risk-based approach for you and for your client, or dependent on your client. However, there are certain situations where, yes, you need to look at source of funds and source of wealth, such as when you have a client that is you're applying enhanced due diligence because they are a person with a politically exposed person, or a person who is associated with or situated in a high-risk third country. So there are certain situations, but again, if you are applying a risk-based approach across your whole AML regime, you might decide in your policy and procedures there are other situations that you want to do that extra check, and that it's prudent to, even if it's not absolutely written into legislation that you must.
Yes, yeah. Some of these elements really seem to, you need to determine what makes sense for you and for your firm. And sometimes, yes, if someone's being difficult about giving you this information, is that just an internal thing to go, they're probably going to be difficult long term to deal with. So maybe that's just an internal thing that we go, that's a flag, we won't engage with them further. Another question I had, there was quite a bit of conversation in the chat about tipping off. Obviously, that's an area of caution. So how do you differentiate the difference between helping a client and tipping them off when it comes to concerns around them being money?
This is probably a case-by-case basis, isn't it? So if you have a situation where you are, I think actually, let's go back a step. A suspicion often isn't a one-event driven situation. You might have lots of little bits that add up to a suspicion on your client, and so actually those little bits, ask ask questions. If you are dealing with your client, you are generally wanting to know all about their business and those transactions. You are not tipping them off. If you're asking details on a transaction, you are asking for paperwork for a transaction. You're asking for a bit more detail on a particular transaction, why they've done it, because also you're going to be asking those questions so that you can give your client advice on how they invest their money, how they build their business. It is part of the bigger offering you give your client. And so it will be the answers to those everyday questions that you are asking that will then inform whether you have a suspicion and you should be raising that internal report, and then your MLRO should be looking at that and potentially raising a suspicious activity report.
Totally. I'm just going to ask the Firmcheck team if they could select a question just to pop up on the screen or to tag me in it just for one last question. But I like this one from Margot. Apologies, I've got stage fright. An accountant colleague, thank you, I'll put that forward. An accountant colleague seemed to think that HMRC was going to require us to monitor our clients' social media posts for any politically inflammatory comments. Could this be true? Have you heard anything?
Oh gosh, no, I've not heard anything. I'm going to go away and look that up. No, I think bear in mind that when you are taking on a client and you're doing your ongoing monitoring of them, it is always worth having half an eye on their online presence and any adverse social media, adverse media on them, because that will again feed into your picture of your overall clients, your rating for them. Yeah,
totally. Okay, cool, fantastic. Thank you so much. I did see Kevin Lord put in a question as well, but he's since removed it. So Kev, if you want to put that through again, you can. Something I wanted to touch on as well was around the requirements of education, of AML education for a firm. A little bit of confusion. Sometimes simply sitting and watching a webinar might not be enough. You need to get a record of the certificate. Can you allude a little bit more to that, what that looks like?
AML training is anything that increases your knowledge of AML. So for all your relevant staff, so anyone that is in a position to identify money laundering within your firm is a relevant member of staff, they need to have training, and that needs to be recorded. Now, it doesn't have to be certifiable, and it doesn't have to be the same for every staff member within your firm. What you need to do is assess what training is needed for the role that each person performs, and then look at what training is available. So reading newsletters, coming on webinars like this, doing certifiable courses, yes, it all counts and all needs to be recorded, but it doesn't just have to be certifiable training.
No, totally. I will plug Firmcheck for the first time today in that we have our own free education, e-learning courses that are the fundamentals of AML that you can put your team through and get unverified CPD credits. The AML Summit's verified CPD, just the difference between the two. So that does count towards your AML education as well. But fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucy. So you'll be with us at the end of each day for these sorts of quick fire sessions.
Yeah, maybe my business partner, Mike, as well.
Oh, yes, yeah.
The two of us, yeah.
So for the people that are still on and attending the other 2 days, definitely shoot those questions through, and we'll follow up after if we weren't able to answer them here. But thank you so much, Lucy. I appreciate the insight.
Lucy, before you drop off, and my question was harshly deleted by our admin, thinking it was a private. And
I'm not sure I want to answer it, do I?
And I think we spoke privately about this last week, and it was certainly one of the barriers we get. And I saw it was ages ago in the chat box, maybe 2 hours ago, but it was about ongoing monitoring and the software that kind of says, hey, we're monitoring your client, and the confusion that causes some firms thinking, okay, I've got a green light on a certain software, that means I'm AML compliant, and the fear of not having ongoing monitoring. have you experienced that in your vast experience is with practices? B, what's your sort of advice when it comes to that?
I haven't come across many people that are using systems that will automatically monitor the clients. I don't believe there is a need to use such software unless you really want to. I would be wary of over-reliance on a system that flags everything to you, because it won't flag everything. AML and suspicion is very objective or subjective, and it is the feeling you get from your client. And as we've heard from David's sessions, AML is more than just identifying your client. It is not just getting a copy of their passport and a copy of their driving license or proof of address. It is far more than that. And an electronic system isn't going to do everything for you. You need to know what you are doing and keep an eye on it yourself.
Perfect.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
It does. And I'm going to test you and your business partner as well, if you don't mind. Can you explain what Calathea does and where people can get you? And I'm going to ask the same question if your business partner.
No, I haven't a clue.
I just want to see if you're on the same wavelength, really. It's a poor.
Yeah. Okay. So our remit is to help mainly accountants and bookkeepers to become compliant or test their compliance through AML audits, where we come in and do a mock inspection, through training, where we will help you plug any gaps in your knowledge, and through support, which might be helping to write your firm-wide risk assessment and your policy and procedure, but we will not do it for you. We do it with you. So we'll do a bulk of the work, but as David has said, these are documents that are personal to your business. You have to put some effort into them. And yet just general AML support for answering questions and coming to things like this.
It's fantastic. And you'll be at FAB as well.
Yeah, this is our first exhibition that we actually have a stand at, so it's really exciting. Yes.
No, that's so exciting. And Joanna just said the AML audit with Calathea is very useful and informative. So you've got to reckon there. I swear I'm not doing promo for FAB, but Firmcheck will be there too. But I'm very excited to meet our summit partners in person. That would be fantastic. But no, thank you.
I really can't wait for it.
Oh, fantastic. No, that's great, Lucy. Thank you so much for your help today. I appreciate it as well.
No problem. I'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Okay, fantastic. Hi, Kev.
Hi, how are you?
So we are at the end of the day-ish. You've still got a demo with Kev if you'd like to stay just to see the Firmcheck software. What a fantastic day. Really. Was there any big aha moments for you, Kev, or something that you thought was shared was really valuable?
I'm kind of sort of blown our own trumpet here, but I've done lots of these, but I've had that sort of excited heart feeling. And even like my wife popped in and said that she was leaving earlier, and she was like, "Why are you so hyper?" I'm like, "I don't know, this I'm just gaining a lot of information, and the engagement's been superb." So I think what the aha moment is that in the chat box, everyone's looking for like a standardized magic wand, like, hey, we just need this from that. When in actual fact, all the experts are saying this is pretty personal to you. This is about you, and it's about your firm. It's about protecting your firm, protecting your business. So it's kind of that. There's no magic wand here. We have to work together. We have to share ideas, share processes, share what's good. So yeah, I think all that. I think it's my heart's racing. I have to be honest with you. We'll sleep tonight.
No, that's awesome. Definitely excitement around AML. Maybe you're experiencing. You may be the only person ever to have experienced excitement around AML. But no, that's fantastic to hear, and I'm sure that resonates with other people that have attended as well. And I truly do feel like today we really did hit the reason why we've done the AML Summit, of just having that conversation, that transparency around how many times can I say AML? We'll say it again. But the response has been overwhelming, and thank you so much to everybody that's come along today. Again, we have another 2 days chock full of content. We have education tomorrow. You can see the schedule on the AML Summit website or in your book, in your workbook. And we have day 3, which is mastering your AML compliance. I'd be really curious if anybody wants to send me their workbook or send some pictures from their workbook if they wrote some nuggets of information or found unique ways to use that. But other than that, I believe that about covers it. We've just popped up a AML Summit survey feedback as well. Firmcheck's only 6 months old. We have come from New Zealand. Although if you think I'm Australian, you now are obligated to purchase Firmcheck because that is offensive. So we're only 6 months old. This is the first time we've done an event like this. So I'm really keen to hear your insights of what you thought we could do better. And other content that you're looking at seeing, obviously there was a lot in the chat. But for now, I'm going to walk away. You won't see me again today. And I'll leave Kev to do a demo of the Firmcheck software. Again, a million thank you. Thank you for attending today. You can find Firmcheck on LinkedIn. We post really great blog content, and that's how you can find out about events and where we are. And you can meet us in person. I love talking to people in person. And you can find Kev and myself on LinkedIn if you choose to connect as well. If you have any questions for Firmcheck, send them to smiles@firmcheck.com. And we will post some answers to the questions that we didn't get to today there. Now, I will leave Kev to do a demo of the Firmcheck product. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Bye.
Thanks, Sophie. And yeah, I mirror your people getting your accent wrong. That's what I tend to go even more Scottish when I need to, but I'm definitely not Irish and I'm 100% not English, especially after the rugby at the weekend. So thanks for staying. Still 300 and odd people online. I will promise not to take up too much of your time. We like to think that the software is pretty simple and easy to understand. Again, what we're trying to give you is a standalone AML solution that will help you manage your obligations, not do your obligations for you, but manage them. Have the same accents, Kevin, get called Irish all the time. Yeah, it's quite a pain. So it'll help you manage that internally and give you the workflow to again, we will not make you compliant, but we will certainly help you in the process of getting there. Okay, so I've logged into the system. I'll try and slow my voice down a bit. Again, sorry, before I go into, if you do want a one-on-one session, then please sign up for a demo. Again, 10-15 minutes of your time there for that. So I have logged into Firmcheck. At the minute, on the left-hand side, you'll see prospects and clients. So we will give you the process of onboarding new prospects to the system, and also the area of managing your existing clients. Now, I'll caveat all the existing clients part with you, is that we will migrate your historic data onto Firmcheck for you. Any historic ID information, risk assessments, we can put as attachments into each of your clients' accounts in Firmcheck, and they're stored there. You don't have to store them elsewhere. So again, if you're audited, you can show historic information that you save. In this demo, what I'll do is I'll go through the adding the onboarding of a new client, just so that I can show you all the functionality as one. It is the same functionality as existing clients, but also I want to show you the workflow process that we've got in place. Okay, so I am going to pick, can someone, anyone just put the name of a pet that they have just in the chat box, and I will create that poor animal's AML process. Molly, fantastic. First one off. I'm really, Yoshi's what a name, Yoshi. It's for us Super Mario followers there, but I think Molly was the first off the bat. So we're going to add prospect for Molly. We can manually create the new party. So, you know, it could be an individual, a company, a trust, a partnership, LLP, or we can import from another system. And that other system at the minute is Companies House. So let's just put Molly, and I'll just pick Molly Adele Limited because it's at the top. You can put in some contact information here and hit add. I'll give it just a second just for the Companies House integration to kick in. And we will click on Molly here and start to build in our evidence now. So the first section is profile. Again, just generic information about Molly. So you've got general details, contact information, and now associated parties. Sod's Law, Molly's directors, I've got a surname that I cannot pronounce. So I can do Cara and I can do Marlon though, so that's good. You can see here from Companies House, the record is up at the top, so we can click directly into Companies House and have a look at the company. What we're doing is we're pulling in the information here. So there's just one officer there, that's Cara, and the PSC here, there is actually 2 PSCs, so Marlon and Cara. Coming back to Firmcheck, you can see there's 3 records actually. Now these Cara Louise is obviously the same person, but we pulled in 2 records from Companies House. One is a director, one is PSC. We can quite easily merge these together and clean that up a little bit. You've also got the option at the top just to make it the active only individuals and not historic directors, PSCs, that kind of thing. Again, working down registries and client admin. Now the client admin is quite a good question from Linda there. Do you link with practice management softwares to draw through information? Not yet. We would love your feedback on those practice managements. We are partnering with as many as we can in terms of that duplication of data. I think it's a fantastic place for us to start. At the minute, we're wanting to be standalone to help with the management of that, but we do get lots of requests about the practice management software. So please let us know what practice management software you use. Zero Practice Management is a good starting point. Anyone that doesn't know about Firmcheck, or chairman or founder, if you like, is Hamish Edwards, the original founder of Xero. So we've got a history there. God, I wish I never asked. Look at that. Look at those comments coming in. Going back to the demo itself, you've got the management area. So if you work in different teams or different locations, you can help segment that. The partner and manager stage could be quite important. So the partner is who is going to sign this off, who's going to approve this new prospect or approve the work that has been done. It could be a senior partner, it could be the MLRO, and the manager is who's doing the day-to-day work here or who's doing the first level review. So again, 2 separate names here, and we'll hit update. And then services, again, hopefully quite self-explanatory, but what services are you doing for this client? Are you doing annual accounts? You might be doing bookkeeping. And again, what this is doing is it's helping you start to build your firm-wide risk assessment information. And, if the auditors ever came in, they would ask you to sort of highlight the services that you're doing for each client. Okay, so that's the profile of Molly Adele. Let's start to do the AML side of it now, which is the next tab. And what we do is we work through this workflow here on the left-hand side to make sure that we're asking all the relevant questions. So first area, client information, we'll copy it from the profile tab like before. And then you've got any notes and support and documentation that you may have. So this is a free form area. It might be a local property firm. It may have been a word of mouth referral. Again, you're just building a snapshot of who this client is, why they've came to you, that kind of thing. Whenever you see a blue bar in Firmcheck, you can add documentation. This is adding the actual documentation, not just a link to it. So I know some softwares out there will add documentation, but it'll just be like a Google Cloud, a Google Drive link or things like that. But you can actually upload files here, and they're stored in Firmcheck. Likewise, you can add an external link. So you might want to put, the website of the firm, for example, again, proving that it's a real and genuine company. There, we'll just hit create, and we'll mark this section as complete now. Coming down the left-hand side now, we've got CDD candidates. So who are we actually doing the CDD on? And like the previous screen, we're pulling in the associated parties. Now, you do have an obligation to make sure that you've done the relevant checks of those within the business. If you don't have the ID for these individuals, then I suggest you just do not tick them, and that'll take them off the workflow. But let's just pick Cara, mainly because it's a name I can pronounce properly. So you're ticking what roles that Cara's doing in the business, and we'll mark that as complete now. And then next one is perform the CDD on CARA themselves. So here's CARA, AML relationships at the top and beneficiary ownership. Is it required, yes or no? If it is, again, free typing area, and you can add documentation again. If it's not required, tick the box and it grays it out, which is fine, and tick the box again. Next section, PEP and personal source of wealth. So including in our pricing and including our functionality, you can run PEP and sanctions reports in Firmcheck. Sorry, I got distracted with a question about biometrics, so I'll show you that in a second. So if you run the PEP and sanctions check, they could come back as exposed. 99% of the time it's not exposed. That will grey out this part. And likewise, if it is exposed, you've got further information to do this. And then the personal source of wealth for the PEP as well. Now that's slightly different to the personal source of wealth of the individual, but I'll show you that in a second. So we'll hit update here. And then we've got ID verification. So collect and verify. Now, a couple of things that you can do there. We can start adding the evidence here. So if you're taking the physical copy or the digital copy of the ID from your client, a good chance of his existing client, it's already been verified as well. You can add this to the software. So let's just take this driver license as an example. I'm just going to pick a random date of birth. That is not mine, sadly. When does the ID expire? So let's just put a couple of years in the future, and the license information. How was it verified? Did you take original, or was it a certified copy? And you can actually add that to Firmcheck. So if I scroll down here and add driver license, again, that's that uploaded. The actual documentation is uploaded onto the software as well. We can add further evidence, whether that be driver passport, birth certificate, utility bill, that kind of thing. Scrolling up to the top, we've got our PEP and sanctions check. So again, you would come in here, stick in CARA's date of birth, and if they are exposed, you would get a full PEP and sanctions exposure report. If it's not exposed, you'll get a little notification from us saying they are not exposed. And then a little question, I think it was from Deep, yep, about the biometric and PEP and sanctions workflow. Sure. Now, this is a great tool if you've got a company with directors abroad or not within your local area. Perhaps you don't meet them face-to-face, or you don't have a copy of their ID. You can run full biometric verification, and it'll also run a PEP and sanctions check in the background. Now, what do we mean with that? What would happen is that you would put in your client's email address into Firmcheck. They would get an email from you, and the email would look like the screen that you can see on your left-hand side. They would click on the link. No need to download any apps or anything like that. Then take a photograph of their ID, driver license, passport, proof of address. We will accept ID from 193 companies worldwide. We will extract the data from that document, so they're not having to type in anything. Ask them to take a selfie, and then within about 5 or 10 seconds, you'll get full confirmation that ID has been verified and how, and a full biometric report as well, so that you can review that as well. Now, if it comes back as it needs reviewed, your client won't be aware of that. It'll come to you for review. Perhaps there's just a slight error in the photograph or something, but you can review that as well. If you're interested, we can send you a full biometric report, what that looks like. But yeah, it's quite simple stuff, really, and hopefully you can see the use of that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and make the determination of this client and confirm their identity. Leave this area, and you can see we've got a tick box there on the left-hand side. Now, again, working down, and I'll try and do it very quickly. Source of funds, Lucy spoke about source of funds there, and how we go that. And if you've got any evidence for that, maybe bank statements, you can attach them again, are they required? Source of wealth, is there a historic source of wealth there? And again, do you need to answer that, yes or no? And I'll update that. And now we come into that real sensitive topic of risk assessments and risk assessment templates. So we actually do have some customer risk factors built into Firmcheck. The questions that you can see just now are the Firmcheck templates that we've created, and we've used that with or we've ran this past a lot of the accounting bodies and the experts on this call just now, and they have agreed with these templates and agreed with that. If you're an ACCA or an ICAW member, we can swap our templates in with their templates as well. So when you on board with Firmcheck, if you tell us who your accounting body is, we'll put the right templates in here as well. And really simple, you know, fingers crossed, most of your clients will have none of these risks. Others will perhaps only tick in one or two of the boxes that are relevant there. And then down at the bottom, you make the determination. And again, going back to Lucy's point just there, this is your determination. It's not ours. A lot of people ask us to say, hey, we've ticked 6 boxes. Why have you not marked that as high? Because they might be high to us, but not high to you. Sorry, I'm also getting distracted with the chat box here. So I'm just going to mark that as medium risk and hit update. We'll get the tick box there. Debbie, you've asked for ongoing monitoring, and that was why I asked Lucy about that question about ongoing monitoring and is it necessary, and their opinion and the body's opinion that ongoing monitoring is not necessary. I would like to know what you mean by that. Does that mean that you're constantly flagged by PEP and sanctions, that kind of thing, just so that I can feed back to the team, if that's okay. Working down now, level of CDD, is it low risk? Is it simplified? Is it standard? Is it enhanced? In this example, I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm just going to make it it's enhanced CDD. And again, you can put free typing information just to back up your assessment there, and we'll hit update again. We'll get the little tick box, and now review. So you've got the summary of everything that we've done here. All the attachments live here, all your determinations, that kind of thing. And you want to schedule the next review. So legally, like David and Lucy have been saying throughout the call, the default period is 12 months. And we will default to that. But again, listen to what Glenn said earlier. You know, the ACCA just want to see that you're thinking about this kind of stuff and you're actively putting something in place that's a little bit different. If it is enhanced risk, then maybe you want to put it to a 6-month review or a 3-month review. And again, that's you showing your accounting body or your auditors that you're thinking about this process. It's an ongoing process there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this as a 1-month review, just so that I can show you what the annual review process looks like. And we'll hit update. Okay. Bear in mind, I'm going through the process of adding a new prospect. Do we want to proceed or not proceed with this client? So we've got proceed. Do we deal with sole traders? Yes, exactly the same format with sole traders there. So I've clicked proceed. You've now got a documents area. You can drag and drop anything you want in here. Again, to kind of take advantage. I don't think the product guys will like me saying this, but you might have a onboarding checklist. You might have letters of engagement. You might have historic information. Use and abuse this area. You know, this is a tool for you to manage all that documentation in one place. And then we've got approval. Good client, good question, Marcus. I'll get to that in a second. Now we want to submit this for approval. And what we will do is submit it to Tracy, who's our senior manager in the firm, perhaps their LMRO of the firm, and we'll submit that for her approval. What will happen is you'll get an email from Firmcheck right at the very top there to say, hey, you've got a new prospect to review and approve. I will very quickly put in the senior partners login credentials. And right at the top, they'll have things to do. And you can see here we've got to review Molly and Adele. They would click on that. All the information that we've just done on the onboarding process or review process lives here. All the determinations, the ID, when the ID is expired, all the documentation, all lives here for the senior partner to review. And if they're happy, they can go ahead and approve and reject that recommendation. So if you hit approve, great, they become a client. If not, it goes back to the previous person for the recommendations to be actioned. So I'll just hit submit. I'll go back to my original log on here. You can see it's in review, but if we refresh that, they become a client. So bear in mind, Molly Adele clients now live in the client area. So if we come to completed CDD, you can use the filters here. I think, Marcus, you're asking about when risk assessments are due, so bear with that in mind. I'll come to that. So we've got completed CDD here. If we just filter that under M, you've got Molly and Adele Limited. We determined that today the review process is due in a month. Remember, I changed it to a month. Now, if anything changed, I think going back to, I think it's Debbie's point, if anything was to change within this review period, say they then become a politically exposed person, or there's a new director into the account, really easily, you can come into the actual account itself and say the CDD needs updating. That would open up the determination again. You could pull through the associated parties from Companies House and start the process again. So if anything changes, when I say start the process again, just do it for that individual. All the historic stuff that we've just done stays there. Now, to your point, Marcus, about ongoing and when it was last carried out, if you can all really picture this is 12 months from now, and we're doing our annual reviews, what happens with that workflow process. In month 9, so 3 months before the review process is due to be carried out, Molly will move from completed CDD into undergoing CDD. And essentially, this is the list of all your clients that are either past the review date or need reviewed in the coming 3 months. So again, if I pick M here as an example, you can see Molly is now due the first stage of the annual review just now. And again, it would be up to probably Rod here, the first person or someone in the firm, to click on Molly and Adele. All of last year's risk assessments are here. All of the ID lives here. We will, you know, if the ID has expired, you do not need to get new ID, but I know a lot of firms would prefer it. You could send them the biometric link and get new ID if required. If any of this stuff needs updated, then, you know, you would go into pending decision and update your risk assessments again. Perhaps they are now low risk and you can update that now. Come back to the review stage. We are happy. We want to proceed with the client again for another year. This time, make it 12 months and hit update. You can see now you've got a tick box to do your first review of that annual review. Hit confirm, job done. Again, the senior partner or the MLRO, whoever's doing the second stage review, can come in and hit second review. And we'll do that. Molly has now left the undergoing CDD area. If we come back to the completed CDD area, it's now kicked forward that for 12 months' time. And that is essentially the annual review process taken care. So are we taking the task away from you? Absolutely not. Are we trying to make it easier for you to manage this? Yes, absolutely. There's tons and tons of questions. I'm not quite sure how many I can get through just now. I'll probably stay online for the next like 2 or 3 minutes, but all these questions are coming in. I will approach, you know, privately, or I will send you a message. I think someone asked about pricing and how our pricing operates, so I'll probably close on that. Do we deal with charities? Yes, you would just manually add the charity to that. Can you add more information as you go along with the source of wealth? Yes, there's lots of free typing areas in Firmcheck. There's also that documents drop-off area that you can type in a private little note or keep a running commentary of something and send the documentation into there. So there's lots of areas where you can free type and get on there. Now, there's a little pop-up that's just came in, sign up today. Essentially, that means if you want to go ahead in our self-serve service, you can sign up and I'll create your account for you. Likewise, if you want a more personalized demo, my diary's open for the next few weeks. More than happy to do that. Let's talk about pricing in the next sort of 3 minutes. Pricing, we are 50p per entity per month. What that means is if you've got a limited company, it's 50 pence for that limited company. Included in that, you'll get your company house checks, your annual review process, PEP and sanctions checks can be included as well. Now, where there's an additional cost, that is for the biometric search. So if you're needing us to go and collect the ID and verify it, that's a one-off cost of £5.50 per report. We won't ask you to bulk buy 100 reports and not use them. There's a great chance you've already verified most of your client's ID already, so it's just a matter of case of putting that in. Let me sort of clarify the 50p per entity as well. If you've got a limited company, it's got 5 directors underneath it. It's not 50p per director. It's just 50p for the limited company and that entity. Sole traders, again, as an individual, 50 pence for that person as well. So hopefully that makes sense. I've got a countdown here. We are over the 3-hour mark today. There's 240 people still online. Well done, you guys. Almost toilet break. Definitely lunchtime. I will call it quits there. I could go into numerous features and dig into individual needs, but that could be boring for everyone else. I hope you found that useful. Again, this is not about the hard sell of the software at all. It's just about getting the conversation started. It's about helping people that when I speak to them, the genuine, the most emotion that is fear of, oh my God, are we doing the right things or not? So let's try and get through that fear. Let's try and support you as much as possible. I'm still buzzing, so I don't think I'll come down from this for a while. I hope you found it useful. You'll get all the recordings, all the slides, all the workbooks. Come back for tomorrow. Tomorrow will all be about education, how you structure education in your firm, the tools to use. We've got some fantastic guest speakers as well. Is there a minimum number of companies? Claire's asking. No, there's not. So, you know, we want to support new practices with one client, existing clients with thousands. So there's no minimum sort of commitment there. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That is the end of day one. Phew, such a buzz. And I hope you found it entirely useful. Thanks.